Welcome, horror fam, to HHN365, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. My name is Duff, and I am here with our producer, Niko.
Hey, howdy, hey.
And today we are here to discuss what we've all, I guess this is what we've been waiting for. It's kind of the sad point. So yeah, no, that's not a great approach. What we've all been dreading. How about that? It's the end of HHN30. But we are here to fully wrap it up, whether that's the food, the drinks, the houses, the scare zones, the sleepless nights. I'll rank which night was the most tiring for me. Everything that is entailed in HHN30, we're covering here tonight. This is it. This is our final review. And I think I got a couple surprises on a personal level. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I might have a surprise here or there with that.
But before we get into that, remember you can follow us on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at HHN365, and also on our YouTube channel, which is also HHN365. If you'd ever like to feature on the show, you can always leave us a voicemail. We'd love to hear them at 407-906-3405. And Niko, where should we start? Obviously, I think just a lighter subject. We'll probably close out with our house rankings and compare them to like some previous rankings. How about a basic one? How did you feel about this year's event overall? Just your overall mood about HHN30.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, I don't know what more to say beyond that. Yeah, I thought it was a really good event. I feel like the quality of houses this year were very, very good. That even there really wasn't a bad house, so it was always good to do that. There were definitely some that I definitely leaned on more throughout the event, but I felt like this was a lot more complete than my only other time, which was HHN29.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought it was a great event. Definitely got my money's worth of my frequent fear pass. Even if I wasn't able to go multiple times a week like you were able to, I was able to just go, Friday evenings, come home, take a nap, and then go Friday like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and the crowds would be light, and everything would be just almost a walk on for almost all the houses after that time on Friday night. So it worked out really well this year. Yeah, overall, I thought it was a great event. Hopefully they'll continue with this style in the future with their expanded food and drink that we saw this year. And yeah, it's very nice that they close that theater that has been there forever, the Fear Factor Theater, which has so many shows have entered there. I'm really glad they ended with what could possibly be one of the best shows at any theme park ever.
Oh, I didn't know you felt that highly about it.
We will talk about that later, but that's a little tease for that.
So as you mentioned, and as most of our listeners probably know, this is only your second year. And in your first year, HHN29, you only went once. So do you think that your enjoyment came a lot from being able to go multiple times this year and not having to worry about just knocking everything out in one night?
I would say it was nice to kind of have the freedom to go pretty much like, Friday nights, be able to just go in and do that and at my own pace. And because of that, I was really able to kind of finally zero in on my house kings for this. I definitely realized that, I don't need to be there. You and a lot of probably our fans in my own way. And I feel like I still enjoyed it as much as I can. I went probably about
plenty of time to fully experience the event and enjoy it at your own pace still.
God, it seems like you were there almost like every night it was open, which makes sense for you because you're like 10 minutes away. Yeah, so it's perfect for you.
I didn't actually count. I know it had to be at least 25 nights.
You went almost every night it operated. At least in October, I could definitely see that you went almost every operating night.
Yeah, I was gonna start missing it. I got a little bit of the sluggish, like, do I want to be out here this late? And I just kept thinking it'll be gone soon. Just show up.
Yeah,
you'll regret it if you don't. So that's what I did. And of course that led to, I don't want to say I got the burnout like a lot of people did, but it led to some nights being like, oh man, this is rough.
How many nights did you actually like stay late? Because I saw you do like stay and scream a lot. I only did stay and scream twice, which were the first 2 days.
Yeah. I'd say later in the event, I had a lot more late nights.
Hmm.
Um, it still wasn't too many. I'd say the 5 to 10 range, probably closer to the five too. I'd
What
say.
nights? What nights did you feel like you enjoyed more? The ones where you actually went to Stay and Scream, or the ones where you kind of went like later
Oh,
in the evening?
to be honest, it really depended on the night. I'd say because I mean, you had like nights like the opening weekend where we
Hmm.
opened to close. I had nights same exact thing closing night, which was maybe my favorite night of the year, where I did Stay and Scream all the way to close. Then there were some nights where Stay and Scream was fantastic, and there were some nights where I couldn't wait to get out of there after Stay and Scream. And there were some nights where I popped in late. Now I wanted to leave immediately, and there was others where I popped in late, and ended up closing when I didn't plan to. So yeah, it's more of a nightly thing more than you know this one specific thing works for me. It just depends on the specific night, what's happening.
That's cool. That really shows the flexibility of the event. Then.
Oh yeah, and then that's one of the great things, and what I took advantage of. Obviously, I experienced it many different ways, went in at different times, and so I think I did one night where I didn't do a single house. Um, and so many ways to take the event in, so many different times you can pop in, and
Mm.
it's different every time. So, and that's one of the things I love about it. So I guess I'll kind of pick up what we were talking about, and how did I feel about HHN30
Hmm.
overall? I felt it was a strong year. I think a lot of like how I felt early on had to do with not having it last year, obviously. And we
Mm.
knew that, like we talked about it, on our original review episode of, we know this is affecting us, it's, we can't stop it. We missed
Hmm.
the event, it's back. We're kind of going to be happy about it no matter what.
Mm.
Um, and I don't want to say the event, like I suddenly think it's bad. I don't at all. I think it's probably an upper mid tier year, not an all timer year overall, but very strong. Um, and then you know what? I don't want to pretend the vinyl didn't have any effect on it. It did, scares were basically eliminated. Um, and I'm not saying I'd prefer scares over anyone's safety. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I can also admit that, yeah, it took away some of the scare factor, and that's just how I felt. And I think I realized it a lot when I went to other haunts that didn't have those limitations, where I was like, oh yeah, they're allowed to scare you. I forgot.
Hmm.
So I mean, I think that is going to hurt it a bit. I can only judge what I saw and what I experienced. But overall, really strong year. I think there's plenty of fan service one, which I'm a sucker for. I think really strong year for originals. Like you said, the expanded food and drink is very welcome. Something we've been waiting for, and we got
Yeah.
this year to a pretty large extent, and pretty solid shows too. So overall, really solid year, and I will miss it. Um, but also, kind of one of those. There's been years where I kind of like don't want the next year to come. I just want to like stay in the year I'm in. But I'm ready for HHN31.
Okay.
Ready to get back to a completely normal Horror Nights.
Do you think they will remove the vinyl? I mean, I know it's way too early to
I
predict
do.
that, but
I do.
okay.
And yeah, here's the thing. I think there's valid feelings about, scare actor safety and what the vinyl can do for that. But the reality is Universal did not put it there to protect scare actors from physical harms, So without COVID, I don't think there's any chance they leave it up. Like
Hmm.
none. So I just think that's how it's going to be. And fuck it, while we're here, we'll touch on it a bit. It was talked about. I don't know if it was more this year than usual, or just because the way the internet goes, you hear a lot more about it every year. Um, a lot of assaulting scare actors was going on, and I'm happy vinyl made some feel safe, but the big thing is Universal has to step up and take it more seriously. That's the only thing that's going to fix this. Not vinyl, not any kind of barrier. It's got to be Universal actually punishing the people who beat up scare actors. Like there's times that people hit a scare actor and they walk free the rest of the night.
Hmm.
So Universal has to take the situation more seriously, and that's kind of where I'll leave it, because until they do that, nothing else is going to help. Nothing. They have to take it seriously first.
That's really bizarre because, like, it doesn't seem like I hear that from other places. Like I don't hear Not Scary Farm having an issue with their characters,
Oh,
or it's not
it's a
that.
thing everywhere. I think it's just the community for HHN Online is the largest in the hunt world by far.
Yeah, and it's probably
So
the most vocal too. That's true. Yeah.
and I think you also have a difference between like, I don't know, you got someone out here on a huge vacation getting plastered, maybe a bit more likely to act out in that way than, maybe
Mhm.
someone who comes here every night. So I think there's, a lot of reasons why we might hear about it more here. But it does happen at every hunt, unfortunately. And some of them take it seriously and it happens a lot less. And others like HHN, people feel like they can do it and just come back the next night. So, that's obviously not going to deter anybody who feels like they want to hit scare actors.
Mm.
So, yep, that's all. Universal, just take that more seriously. Like actually press charges, incarcerate these people,
Yeah, trespass them.
trespass them.
Don't trespass people who snuck into Nickelodeon studios, but trespass those that actually assault and that are actually doing physical harm.
Yep, I'd be cool with that. But anyways, let's get on to happier notes. Let's talk about that food and drink, Nico. How much of it did you get to enjoy?
I enjoyed quite a bit of it for the event. I wasn't able to try everything. Unfortunately, every time I tried to get the Leatherface cherry pie, it was sold out. Almost every time I try to get it. But yeah, I would definitely say that the food and beverage, it was definitely a welcome change beyond just, pizza fries and, twisted taters and stuff like that, which I didn't have either of this year because, well, once again, I'm not the biggest fan of either one of them. So
Okay, true.
it was good to see that. The German food at the Monsters Cafe was very welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
And had good price for performance when it came to their portion sizes, which is always good. I had the lasagna there, the vegan lasagna, which was very, very nice. Definitely not what you would expect from like theme park food. And the potato pancake there was also extremely good as well. And of course, the sandwiches from, the Hill House sandwich stand is very good as well. The tempeh Reuben probably being at the forefront. And shout out to Universal for not saying, oh, this is vegan straight in your face, just being like, yeah, this is just something and it just happens to have vegan products in it. Like
Yep.
you don't have to scream from the top of your lungs that this is vegan or vegetarian. You can still make something good and just be like, oh yeah, well now everyone can enjoy it. So I thought that was pretty cool of them. I will say the pumpkin beer that they had this year is vile swill and should never be consumed by anyone. It's the grossest thing I've ever had.
Really?
That thing was gross. Yeah, and I usually like pumpkin flavored things and stuff, but the pumpkin beer this year was absolutely gross. I don't know if it's the same one from years prior or that, but
no, they've always had.
Well, they should never bring it back.
Shipyard Pumpkinhead. Which
See, I like Shipyard Pumpkinhead.
Everyone adored it. Like literally everybody adored it, and for some reason they switched it up this year, and doesn't seem like people liked it as much. To be fair, I do not enjoy most pumpkin beers. I think Shipyard Pumpkinhead at best is okay. And this one I tried a sip of, and to me it was basically on the same level. And that could just be my I don't love pumpkin beers, so I can't say I'm probably not the best one to judge the quality of that pumpkin beer. And I'm wasting time because there it is. Whole hog pumpkin ale is what it was called.
Whole hog. Yeah.
I know a couple of people actually really loved it, but I'd say majority I wouldn't say to your level, but a lot of people were like, "Damn, I miss my pumpkin head."
Yeah. Don't bring that back. Yeah, just go back to Shipyard. People like it, people expect it. And yeah, just bring that back.
I will say the Oktoberfest they had was a very nice addition.
Yeah, that was good. There, I did try some of that. That was definitely good to have at the park. But yeah, just the vileness of the pumpkin beer really just stood out in my mind when it came to food and drink. And I'm not a big, and I saw the poison apple and I was like, I don't really want this. Like, it's already late at night, the old man thoughts start creeping in your head and you're like, do I really want to spend this much on something I probably won't like? So unfortunately, I didn't have any of the other boozy drinks.
I would say you probably would have been okay with Poison Tea Party. I think that would have been
Okay.
pretty up your alley, to be fair.
All right.
It was actually my favorite, surprisingly, cocktail of the year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was the most consistently, just a nice, refreshing, again, a bit on the sweet side for me, but compared to like something like Cool Juice, which was just, oh my God, fucking sugar, 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 sugar. Yeah, I'll take Poison Tea Party all day. But I'm happy to report that the pizza fries this year were consistently great.
That's good.
For a couple of years now, there's been a lot of issues with it being like overcooked, not enough sauce, whatever it may be. Something was wrong a lot. And that every time I had them this year, nailed them. Perfect. It was like perfect, not burnt. The fries had a nice little crunch, but soft inside, a lot of sauce, the melty cheese, but on the other end of things, every single time I tried Twisted Taters, they were horrid. Either basically chips, like very, very crunchy chips, or just a sog fest.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Like I tried a few times and I gave up. I could not get good ones. So, is what it is, I guess. I'll take the trade-off if it means at least pizza fries were consistently delicious. I will say, going back to your stand with some grilled cheeses, the jalapeno popper grilled cheese was my favorite item, I think, of the event. It was
nice,
so good. And it was simple, It had jalapeno, bacon, cheddar cheese, and then cream cheese as well. And it was phenomenal. Loved it.
Yeah, they really knocked it out of the park with that. And that's such a simple thing, too. It's probably one of the worst price to performance things, as those are like $10.99 a pop.
Yeah.
For those, and it's not really that big of a sandwich, especially when Monsters Cafe is giving huge portions for $4 less, $3 less in that case. But I digress with that. I really hope they bring something like that back, and they just like whatever goes into that house, they're like, oh, this is the sandwich house again. Like the Billie Eilish sandwich. I'm not saying Billie Eilish is coming next year, but I'm saying like the Billie Eilish sandwich shop would be funny.
Mm-hmm. And then I did want to point out what was it? I don't remember the name, but that the vegan lasagna. I don't remember what it was called. Like you said earlier, it came close to me. That shit was good.
Yeah,
that's
very hard to pronounce
for sure.
So no points off for that. So
I haven't even found it on the list yet, so I'm not even going to bother finding it. And then also, I really enjoyed that gyoza.
Nice.
It was just it was turkey and butternut squash, like for gyoza, but it was amazing. Loved it. It. So those are my heavy hitters of the event. That food truck that had the chicken sandwiches, that buffalo one, that sauce was horrible. I don't know if you ever tried it, but it was like kind of like sweet, and man, that was not a normal buffalo sauce in any sense, and I did not enjoy it. And if you know me, buffalo chicken,
yeah, you like
anything is my shit. Yeah. If I don't know what to order somewhere, like a standard fare place, I'm probably just going buffalo chicken. So that was very disappointing. Oh, and one more thing, lamb split. That was phenomenal. Did you ever try that platter, the lamb split platter?
Lamb and me don't get along, so I didn't try that. Gotcha. For some reason, like lamb doesn't get along with me, so I wasn't able to try that one out. But I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's my thing. And then I'll give you one sweet that I really enjoyed, and that was that fried PB&J. That thing.
Oh,
and then it had that little like I think it was like a hot honey. Really good. Really enjoyed that as far as sweets go. Everything else a little too sweet for my liking. You had the fried Oreos and then the Twinkies. A little too sweet.
Fried Oreos were good. They were they were served piping hot, so I like that. It wasn't like too soggy.
Yeah.
For that, it is definitely an above average fried Oreo, step above what you would get at your, Strawberry Festival or Florida State Fair. So
Yeah, sounds about right. Oh, and that beer float, but it was actually like an Ace cider, not a beer, that had like the the like cream on top. The like I think it was it fully ice cream? Anyways, terrible. I hated that. It was
oh
disgusting.
no.
Yeah, did not enjoy it. I think it was a blood orange cider. And I remember I was like, for a cider, like when I drink it alone, not bad, but as a float, it did not work whatsoever for me.
Mm.
But yeah, overall, really strong year for foods, and I hope the options only keep ramping up moving forward.
Yeah, I definitely think they will. What I hope they do next year is that they do the food pass like they do
Mhm.
for Mardi Gras. I think that would be a grand slam for them, but that might also eat into their profit margins as well with that because this is how they make most of their money throughout the year. Yeah, there were plenty of times where I waited in line longer for food than I did for like a house
Oh yeah,
this year, and that was very interesting, like and at weird times of day and stuff. But yeah, that would be cool to see them like introduce the whatever the Mardi Gras food pass is. Like you know what I'm talking about if you've been to Universal.
yeah.
The Mardi Gras food pass, the audience out there who may not be aware of that. But yeah, that's something that I hope they bring. And that's starting to become a pretty big theme park trend. Like even Cedar Point had something like that for
Oh really?
their cherry festival that they did, which was really good. They did a great job up there for that. And I think Knott's has also done something
Oh
similar
yeah.
to that,
No,
like Cedar
yeah,
Fair Parks
they have for sure.
are doing that. So I think that would be great. I think that would be a welcome addition to HHN. Like, and just bring that all together there. So
In fact, I'm hoping to see it for the holidays coming up.
yeah,
Universal,
that
just
would be
saying.
cool if they introduce it with that. I'll be interesting to see.
All right. So, what do you say we move on to shows next? And we'll
Yes.
we'll start with the one I know you're very excited about. If you'd like to kick that off, Nico.
Yeah, we'll just go ahead and talk. So I finally got to see Mountain Dew Nightmare Fuel. Uh uh God, it was not what I expected at all. In a great way. And I say that in a really great way. I had recently come back from Vegas and I saw David Copperfield out there and he did, some of those disappearing, reappearing acts and stuff like that. And when you're seeing Copperfield do that in a controlled scenario like his purpose-built theater at the MGM Grand, like you kind of expect that to happen.
Mhm.
But you wouldn't expect something like that to happen multiple times during a show at a theme park like this. An amazing performance from everybody at Halloween Nightmare Fuel. Just so many different elements that they crammed into there. Like the story, you don't really go there for a story. I mean, there kind of is with like, oh, it's his nightmare and he has to wear a mask in his nightmare for some reason, which is funny. And he goes to bed with his mask on. Um, and just all of the performers that they brought in, the fire dancers, the silk dancers, the stage, the other dancers that would come out like into the audience and do the dance on the little stage out
Mhm.
there. Uh, all of it worked really well, and it might be the best theme park show I have ever seen.
Wow.
I was floored by Halloween Nightmare Fuel, and I saw the one like the Friday before closing. So apparently, the person I saw that with, a friend of the show, Brian, he said that this was the best show that he'd seen of it, and like apparently that little elements would not be in certain shows. They would just do the fire longer if they didn't have a certain folk in there. But man, was it amazing! It's really cool to see them perform like that and have it all come together, and good choice of music, lighting, the fire effects were amazing in this. It's really the best way to say goodbye to that theater.
Hmm.
Which, a lot of people, I know, like, people aren't really sad to see it go, but they think about all the different shows that have taken
I mean,
place in
it
there,
has a special place in my heart.
all the Bill and Teds that have been in there. And to be honest with you, I've seen Bill and Ted's online. I would have much rather had Nightmare Fuel than that, but I'll digress on that.
You better.
Um, but man, was it good! It was such a great stage performance. It's everything. It's what my mind thinks Tarzan Rocks was. Like my nostalgic kid mind, this is what and I guess it's like a sexy Tarzan Rocks, but they turned everything up to an 11 there, and just hats off to all of the performers there. I don't know if we're ever going to get a show like this ever again. It would be cool to see them maybe do it at the Toon Lagoon Theater. But I don't really see the logistics.
Animal actors seems a little more likely than
Animal actors, I could see them do it in there. They could even do it in the Blue Man Group Theater.
This is true. But
if that's empty.
We'll have speculation episodes coming soon. So we'll
but I want that group to come back, and whoever designed the show and like that, the choreography.
The most impressive part is the majority of the performers are just Universal team members. They're performers at Universal, whereas like obviously at Academy of Villains, which is its own dance crew, so having that level of performance with majority just in-house performers, very impressive. Obviously contracted out like fire dancers and silk dancers, but everything else in-house, which so you've proven that you can just bring it back. You can, not the same exact show, but something of that level again, you can bring it back.
Yeah, Universal Creative really knocked it out of the park with that, and everyone involved with that show, whether it be the set designer, the choreographer, the music director, and like even the overall direction and writing of the show is really good. And I really hope that team sticks together, and I hope Universal treats them well to make a new show, because I'm really excited to see what that team can come up with next.
And you know what? I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I do have a few things I'd nitpick. One, too much fire. I never thought I'd say that about a show, but too much fire. The fire is always kicking. I can see that. And they did 3 full like fire dancer performances. I feel like they could have stopped it at 2.
Okay.
I don't know if we need a third one.
I think that's what I heard from there. I did not. I had 2 fire performances in mind. Did you have the guy with the ring?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have the guy with the silks?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the third part? No, we only had 2 fire segments in mind. Really? I know that apparently like it changed a couple of times and stuff. Yeah, there was the first fire set, and then there was the secondary fire set. At least that's what I had in mind.
Not be remembering from like my first viewing, but I know the last few definitely had the 3 full fire performances.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
But anyways, a little bit more diversity in what you're doing would have been nice. I know the story's not too important, but when you're gonna go to it and commit to it, give us a finale that makes something fun. It was so anticlimactic. What I'm not talking about like what happened, but story wise, what happens. It's just it wakes up, she's here. All right, let's dance. I don't know.
Yeah,
but again, story wasn't very important, but when you're gonna do it, do it. So just a couple nitpick things for me. Also, the rewatchability wasn't fully there for me. I did end up seeing it 5 times, which is more than I thought I would. Could have done a couple less, to be honest, and been completely content. But I think it's a great addition to the event, that kind of show, and I think a lot of people loved it. So no qualms with anything like it coming back. And then I know you enjoyed the other show, Marathon of Mayhem, Carnage Factory, so much so I think it was in a review episode of the opening weekend that you said you might even like it better than HHN29's.
Yeah, and that's why we do episodes like that. We get the instant reactions, and then we see that. I've settled down on that a little bit more. Okay. I saw it one more time, and I really did like it. I did like the pounding, the subwoofer pounding. I really like a a nice theme park subwoofer, where you get like the low tones going through you, like that. I really like experiencing that in a theme park. So it was really good to hear that at certain points of there. And Jack, it was just great to see like a lot of Jack in there, him just hamming it up. Was a really good part of it. I kind of, don't really like the Hill House parts of it, but everything else was great in the show. I know it's not as probably memorable or like groundbreaking as the original Marathon of Mayhem was, but it's really hard to get to that. When you go from 0 to 100 that quickly, the follow up a lot of times will probably be a disappointment, because you'll always remember the first time that you saw Marathon of Mayhem and be like, oh my god, I can't believe Universal actually did something good in this lagoon for once. So it is a very good show, and it's a fine addition. With that, I really hope they keep the Marathon of Mayhem like label around, kind of like what I hope they do with Halloween Nightmare Fuel. I hope they kind of keep that branding around with it, and those just be like the shows that we get every year. We just get a new version of Marathon of Mayhem, and you know what? I'd be real happy with that if we do that every year. If we get a show like we had this year, yeah, I'd be real happy with having that again.
Yeah, I think keeping it as a series of Marathon of Mayhem is a great way to go, and just kind of changing uh, what the content is in it. And I think this year it was a lot of fun. I pretty much stand by my exact feelings after opening weekend that it was a very strong show, and had I not seen HHN29s, it would probably be an amazing show. But my mind can only compare. I'm only human. I can't pretend the first one didn't exist. And so knowing what could have been, seeing a lot of fun, really enjoyable, but it was just an impossible task to beat what 29 had. The IPs and the music that came with them lined up so perfectly. The thematic elements of the event, the aesthetics, it lent so perfectly to a lagoon show like that. Whereas the IPs here, I thought, really did not. And as you said, especially Hill House, I think squeezing that into a lagoon show proved to be a very difficult task, and it showed. I mean, even Monsters really wasn't the best fit. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think honestly they took the best approach there, because rather than really just kind of pulling clips, it just kind of went wild, took the thematic elements of what it is and the sounds and had fun with it. I think that worked a lot better than like what they did for Hill House, which is just pulling clips. So I think it was set up to not fail, but not be as good as 29. And I think they did a really good job with what they had to work with. So kudos. And I look forward to returning, and hopefully maybe some IPs or the thematic elements of the event work a little bit better, and maybe get a little closer to 29's level.
Yeah. The painted black cover sucked, though.
See, I liked that part of it, but I also kind of agree that the cover itself wasn't my favorite.
Yeah,
so
like it, and it's kind of like, oh, we're just doing this. Okay.
Yeah, I like the way the song fit in that section, but yeah, that specific cover wasn't my favorite.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think really strong year for shows. When you put the two together, neither of them amazing to me, but both very good. So can't complain there, because most years, you can't say that. So except 29. 29 is, I think, the only year where I can say I've loved multiple shows, or really, really enjoyed multiple shows, should I say.
Nice. Yeah. Like this was really like the word of mouth is the reason I actually went to see Halloween Nightmare Fuel for that. So yeah, I don't think I would have liked Academy of Villains, and you know what, I probably would have gone to see Bill and Ted at least once if I had gone years prior.
I mean,
but
it's always worth checking out the shows that are there, especially when you're a repeat visitor.
Yeah, that's true. I was like, you know what, I gotta at least see it. So I'm really glad I did. Stopped and smelled the roses a little bit here.
Yeah, for sure. Opened your eyes to future shows like it that I'm sure will come.
Hopefully.
Where? Who knows? We'll discuss it soon, though.
Yeah.
All right. I guess it's already time for scare zones.
Yep.
So how about we kind of discuss them first, and then we'll just kind of do a quick ranking after.
Okay.
Let's start with the winner of Scare Zone of the Year. Seek and Destroy. Oh wait, no, no. Lights, Camera, Action. Eddie's Revenge. If you missed it, Twitter blew up that Seek and Destroy won it, but they did not. It was actually Lights, Camera, Action. So that was an oopsie going around Twitter. But Lights, Camera, Action was your actual winner. Congratulations to the cast in that zone. And you know what? The zone, I'll spoiler alert, it wasn't my favorite zone. However, I think I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I
Yeah, it
went
was pretty
into
good.
it with the thoughts of this kind of seems like a mess. This just seems like an absolute mess, and they're just trying to make it fun, which usually doesn't work for me, but it did in this sense, you know. Um, Again, not the absolute best zone I've ever experienced, but I thought going through and seeing characters and scare zones from the past that I've really enjoyed, even if it was super hodgepodged, was an enjoyable experience. I thought the interactions you got with the scare actors in there was a lot of fun, and I think it was a very beautiful zone with the lighting and the way the stages were set up.
Yeah, I really liked Action a lot too. Great characters in there, and it was kind of nice to have a hodgepodge zone of everything kind of happening in there. Like I said, I don't really have connection to anything in that scare zone, but I still had a great time always walking through there. I always preferred to walk through there instead of, around the corner from Transformers. I would always like to take that little walk to try to get to that part of the park, which is where I spend most of my time anyway. So yeah, Action, Lights, Camera, Action, great little scare zone there. Really enjoyed it.
I will say, I think it benefited a lot from Jack going there nightly, really. Go hang out on the stage
Okay.
with Eddie, because it was a scare zone where there was background audio, but there wasn't anything too interactive, at least vocally. Enter Jack. Suddenly you got the guy at HHN up on stage, um, having fun, just going at it. So I think that helped it a lot. Because I think you take that element away, the fun level drops just a bit. So they were lucky to get that part, and I don't think anyone fully expected that to happen. So I'm definitely happy it did, and it worked a lot for me.
Yeah, and I think this would be a good time to talk about it. I really like the roaming Jack this year.
Mm-hmm.
Just like him walking around, like interacting in the different scare zones and stuff. Like entertaining people in line, or like with a bullhorn and driving a golf cart. I thought that was a really campy, fun way to like have him kind of like be a little bit extra for the people in the park. It's a nice little touch, and it's something that I hope returns.
Oh, I mean, and then you have him driving around on a fucking golf cart screaming.
Yeah.
It's it was great. And the thing is, the man behind the Jack knows of, at the very least, a lot of people via social media. So people got very personal interactions, which made it not only enjoyable for them, but for everyone around them, because he's sitting there personally harassing someone and talking shit about them, which makes it all the more enjoyable to just watch. It was just the perfect element to add, especially to a year like this. The way they threw Jack out there as like, this is Jack's event, basically.
Yeah.
So to have him out there and everywhere you can find him. So I
And
thought
he's
that was great.
ordained. Yeah, he performs weddings too.
This is true. He does. Congratulations, Jess and Eugene, by the way.
Yeah. Congratulations to that. That was really fun to see. I'm like, oh, well, would you look at that?
Yeah, no, performed a wedding right there in action.
Uh,
But yeah, no, that having him roaming was
yeah,
a
fucking
phenomenal
rules.
decision. And any icon year, do it. Honestly, do it.
Mhm.
What's next? What should we do? 30 years, 30 fears. Let's go there.
Yeah.
I I mean, I love the look of it. It brought me
Yeah.
back. Had the massive trusses with neon sign and fire from
Hmm.
my, that was there at Sweet 16, my first ever year. And so it meant a lot to me to see it as a scare zone. It was solid for being in production central. You're only going
Hmm.
to do so much there. It did its job, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, yeah, it was just kind of there. It was fun to see them like interact. It was fun to see the characters interact with the people in line for case files. But yeah, like yeah, it was just kind of there, and you kind of like walk through it, and you're like, ooh, the spooky kind of that. Which the truss system with the fire is awesome, and it's a great
Mhm.
look when you're walking into the park, and it kind of like draws you in, which I guess is the purpose of it. But yeah, it's just something you kind of just breeze right through. It was more of a fun thing. It wasn't as memorable, I would say, as the arcade cabinet area from 29
Mhm.
that occupied the same space.
And arcade, yep.
And arcade, thank you. With that, so, but yeah, it was decent. I mean, it's still better than others that were at the event. So still,
I think it was also a bit hurt by the fact that it was a second zone where it was just characters from the past, characters from the
Mhm.
past, and this one didn't hit the same notes as Action. I think you had Blood and Bone, which is pretty big. Outside of that, I heard a lot of "Who- who's that?" So
Oh, I
it,
had no idea who they were.
oh yeah, I mean, I figured you didn't, but it did not hit the same way as Action did for kind of going for the same thing in that sense. Um, the vibe totally hit though. I'd say nailed what HHN feels like, to me. Um, so successful in that front, but based off where it's located and how they executed it with one, how few scare actors were in there, and um, how tight it would get, of course, because of the location. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Mhm.
Let's go. Let's keep just going around then to Seek and Destroy. How'd you feel about Seek?
Oh, great. Loved it.
Yeah.
Every part of it was great. I really liked the 70s style outfits. I know a lot of people uh weren't the biggest fan of their outfits, but I loved them because I like, boring 70s sci-fi. And that really scratched an itch for me. I loved the controller. I loved the interaction was probably the best out of all the scare zones was there because they kind of weren't just set to their stages.
Hmm.
They were able to walk around, get in your face. I don't know why they had chainsaws. Didn't really fit thematically, but you pick and choose your battles with something like that when you nitpick. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed Seek and Destroy a lot more than I probably thought I would enjoy it. I mean, I think I had it as number one on my hype list, but I think I enjoyed it more than what I initially thought. So
Yeah, I think so. I was excited about it going into it, and then I think after I want to say it was only night one where I was kind of like, oh well, is this really gonna work out the way I thought it did? And it didn't take long. A couple nights in, I was like, damn, I like this zone. I know I'm like you. I like that whole like 70s kind of sci-fi look to it. I thought
Mhm.
that was great. I think just the concept with the controller and how they're harvesting us
Yeah,
and the level of interaction you got because of that. Go bow down to the controller. And to
y-
get that full interaction. That was great. Loved
yeah.
it.
It was the most. It was the most fun out of all the scare zones, I would say. I know. So
Uh,
I know, and I can see why Haction would probably get the nod over it because it's probably more. There's more personalization with Haction compared to Seek and Destroy, where a lot of Seek and Destroy, there's really only. And I mean, they introduced some of the victims, but the victims were all right. I didn't think they were a necessary addition
mm,
from the first weekend. But really, you just had like the controller to really be the only like face character in the land. So I can kind of see like why Haction would have gone that because it requires probably a little bit more mugging and personality besides just, having a huge swarm. But the amount of characters in Seek and Destroy
Oh
is
man.
insane. I could
Mhm.
not believe how many characters were in that scare zone.
Oh yeah,
There.
watching any kind of cast change there,
Oh my god, the cast change there is
insane.
the funnest thing to watch.
It's just never ending. They just keep coming. It's insane.
It was really fun to watch. I really enjoyed Seek and Destroy.
But then, like outside of that stuff that we mentioned, I think the lighting was great, especially with the
Oh yeah, the
spotlights all
spotlight.
over the place.
Mhm.
I think the props were frequent. There was a bunch of them, and I thought most of them looked really good and fit the theme well. It just kind of hit a lot of notes you're looking for in a scare zone, and I think a lot of people disagree. I remember when they accidentally oopsied that Seek and Destroy won scare zone of the year. Then a lot of people were like, "What? This zone sucked." I was like, "Oh well, I disagree, but to each their own. To each their own." And that's fine. That's part of the fun of the event is that everyone's got something for them, right? And this is one that just hit really well for me. I think it's a theme and aesthetic that I really enjoy, and I think the way they utilized it was, couldn't ask for too much more.
Mhm.
All right, so moving on, we have Crypt TV, which
All right, moving on to Gorewood Forest.
oh yeah, oh wow. So I will say, I think Crypt TV, I liked it more than I thought I would. Um, However, man, like the whole San Francisco is a tough location in the first place. Bottlenecks
Mm.
galore. When you shove a bunch of stages on each side
Mhm.
and only put scare actors on the stages so people crowd around them as photo ops, it was hell to walk through. Hell.
Yeah, it's really bad over there, and I really hope whatever refurbishment we're getting at Fast and Furious kind of clears out that area a little bit more, so where they can move that scare zone back a little bit closer, like away from Diagon Alley and towards Transformers.
I mean, here,
Because it does not fit in there.
spoiler alert for when or probably in a few weeks here when we do our speculation / wants episode, whatever it's going to be. I am tired of San Francisco being used. I think it's a nice base just being along the lagoon, and the nice building as the backdrops.
Mhm.
It is too small for a scare zone. When you put props in there, it makes it miserable to walk through.
Yeah, maybe we just have that be a chainsaw zone, kind of like what Springfield has been in the past.
Mhm.
Maybe that just becomes a chainsaw zone. Like, I know it's kind of a long drought between like houses and like things, so that's why they put a scare zone
Yep.
there, because it is a bit of a drought back in that area. But this was definitely not the way to do it. And like, I think just the annoying part of how crowded it was made you not want to be there, and like just leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, I think that's a huge reason why it's just tough to get down with that zone for me.
Mhm.
Because one of the things you had to do to enjoy that zone was stop at a stage and interact with the scare actors, which there were a few times I was able to when I was there really late and it wasn't as packed, and I enjoyed it. I thought, one, the characters looked spot on. I thought their interactions were a lot of fun, but being limited to the stage, you can't interact with them if you don't stop at a stage, which I don't. That's not how I want to take in my scare zones. If it's
Yeah,
bottlenecked the way it is, I just want to get through there as quick as I can. That's
100%.
not a fun experience. And especially with the way, this year we're still in a pandemic. Not loving just being squished between a bunch of people nonstop, you know?
Mhm.
I still
Yeah.
try to take precautions where I can, and sitting in a literal sea of people isn't something I was 100% comfortable with. So, there was a lot of reasons why I don't think it worked for me. I want to say it's not because of the characters themselves. They looked great. I thought when you got to interact with them, it was a lot of fun. It was more of all just fully designed choices for me and operational choices that kind of
Mhm.
ruined it.
Yeah. Yeah, that hopefully they'll improve on that in the future. Should we go to the other bottleneck?
Real quick, I did want to say that someone was like, "Oh, we should have this as a house," and Crypt TV tweeted it, and a lot of people were poo-pooing it. I want to say I think it would work probably a lot better as a house than it does as a scare zone. I'm just
Oh yeah,
saying.
yeah,
I'm not
just like little vignettes string together. Yeah, that would be fun.
like I'm not gonna necessarily champion for it to be a house or anything, but I think I'd be a bit more excited for its potential as a house
Yeah, because
than
like
what we
what
saw as a scare zone.
Yeah, Scary. We had a house that was probably very similar to something like that. Scary. It would have been probably
Mhm.
executed a very similar way.
Nice compilation house, it's nothing uncommon. Horror Nights has done plenty of them. They work sometimes and sometimes they don't, but I think this property would lend itself to a compilation house because it's a bunch of shorts, right?
Yeah.
So, bunch of shorts in a house. There you go. Boom.
Hmm.
So, I wouldn't be so quick to shoot it down just because you didn't necessarily enjoy this zone. If you don't enjoy Crypt TV as a whole, I get it. Yeah, fine. But I'd say just consider how much better it could work as a house than a zone. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good way to readdress Crypt TV.
All right, let's go to bottleneck and a little bit less bottlenecky number two.
Yeah, this is a long necker. With that, Gorewood Forest. So, the Terror Queen's cool. She was really neat.
Hey, I think her redesign's badass.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her design, and that
So
was
I,
and the trees look cool. But
off the
that's
top
really all I have to say nice about the zone.
off of the top of your head, do you know what the Terror Queen like looked like before from like 2005?
No, but the
So
one who looked like there looked like kind of like one of the forest like wizards you would come across in Skyrim, and I was like, "Ah, this looks fucking cool." So I really liked her
yeah,
design this year, like without knowing a previous design. I
I would
really enjoyed
say
it.
as someone who's been super excited for the Terror Queen to return, and start looking it up right now. Go look at a picture so you can understand. I was worried about the design because it would be very outdated if they brought it out today. It looks like if Affliction was a scare actor. Like it was very much a product of its time. The design they chose for her, and I think it was cool for the time, and it really needed some modernization, and I think they executed it really well. So I was very happy with that. Um, I would say the whole mini stage show where she sacrifices Eelmouth. One, I want why I want some explanation on that. Why is Eelmouth only being sacrificed when that's normally like the right hand man? And the whole like she does this talking in a different language where that wasn't a thing at all before with her. Uh, I think it was just why, and also if just a bit of an explanation of what's going on that stage there would have been nice. But uh,
Yeah,
her as a whole and her design, loved it. Great.
yeah. I'm looking at the old design right now. Oh my.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, holy crap.
You could see
Oh
how it'd be
man.
cool in 2005,
Oh, it just
right?
screams 2005. Her on that fucking ugly motorcycle. Holy crap. Oh my god, that is you're exactly right. It's like what if you took affliction shirts and made it into a person?
Yeah. So I think that's a huge win that they had there. I will say, walking through the rest of the zone, the scares were a bit repetitive. I like that they
Yeah.
had actual like built-in blue holes in a scare zone. I think that's a lot of fun. The knuckle grunts looked pretty badass, I gotta say.
Yeah, that was good.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like a little more variety would have been nice. Like you said, though, I thought the zone looked great with the lighting, especially up on the trees and the way the trees were alive. That was a lot of fun. Um, and I think the props looked good. It just didn't. It didn't hit the way I wanted it to, and I think a lot of that came to repetitiveness, walking
Hmm.
through,
Yeah.
not enough variety, um, and then also the lack of a more interactive Terror Queen. As in, it could have been a bigger show or a more well explained show or anything. It just kind of felt like she was there. This pre-recorded audio comes on, and there goes Eelmouth sacrificed. Done. Stop. Repeat.
Yeah, but they kind of did the best with their area that they were assigned because like that's always I mean it is an interesting place to put a scare zone. It's done a lot better than Crypt TV, at least
I
with the
think
bottlenecking and
Central
stuff like
Park
that.
is probably my favorite location for a zone, just because of the way the trees overhang and the way, and like it's a long path. I think it makes for a perfect zone.
Yeah, it's a great zone to walk through, but it's not like a good one to like hang out in. If you want to like
No.
sit down and enjoy a drink, that's definitely Haction or Seek and Destroy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
Uh,
especially for when you're going to put a stage up front, not
yeah,
not the best layout for sure.
yeah.
But again,
It's
I can only judge on what it was and what I saw. I know that it's going to have limitations because of that, but that's not going to change how I feel about it. I can't
true.
give it a break for that because operationally they could have chose to done it differently.
Hmm.
That wasn't. It didn't have to be that way. That's what was chosen and what they did. So that's how I have to look at it. And I think I wanted to really, really love that zone. I wanted it to be my number one. And I think it just, not that it was bad, but fell a little flat for me.
True.
But visually, loved it. Great. Visually, I couldn't ask for much more out of it.
Yeah, yeah. Great visuals,
Which
and
is what
the
Central Park is
tree
always
lighting
great
is
for.
so good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it looked phenomenal, especially at night. Loved it. It set that vibe perfectly. So that's it. That's our five. Shall we rank them?
Yeah, you go
Do
ahead.
you want to do a back and forth?
We can just go down since it's just the
Yeah.
five of them.
We'll save it
like,
for houses back and forth.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I'll go first, I guess. So number 5 is actually tough. I don't want to put this here. I feel like it should be number 4, but thinking about how many times I walked through it super frustrated, it's got to go 5. And unfortunately, it's Crypt TV, and it has
Yep.
a lot. Again, what we discussed, more to do with operation than anything else. The operational choices were not great. It made for a very frustrating walk through San Francisco. So for that reason, I couldn't enjoy it much, and have to put it at 5. For number 4, 30 Years, 30 Fears. Again, it hit on the vibe. I saw a couple characters that I was happy to see again, but other than that, didn't do much. Also got pretty bottlenecked. There just wasn't a lot going on at all, like at all.
Mm-hmm.
And if I get fucking shouldered in the stomach by one more person, like stopping in the middle of a walkway to get a selfie with a stilt walker, oh man, I was also frustrated in that zone for those reasons. So yeah, slightly operational, but that's how that one works. They really did as much as you can in that area. But also I think they should have done more, bringing in more scare actors, and just more. It was basically the trusses, and there's a little bit around it, and that was it. I want a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But the vibe was good, so that's enough to get it to 4. Number 3, Gorewood Forest. Unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have thought that it would end up this low. It was in my favorite scare zone location. It is the one thing I've wanted to see return the most, Terra Quentis, and that's a perfect recipe for success, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
it was good. I liked it. Wasn't great, unfortunately. And again, that's just, I needed more variety. Wanted a bit more from Terra Queen's show. I'll say in quotations. So I feel like good enough, but not what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, lights, camera, action. Yeah, I had that one pretty low on my hype list. I think number 4, because I was worried about hodgepodging together an icon, a sequel of a past scare zone that this really has nothing to do with,
Mm-hmm.
and then also shoving in a bunch of past scare zones all at the same time. And to be honest, it was a mess. It didn't make much sense at all, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to walk through and sit in and interact with the scare actors. Go watch Jack and Eddie up on the stage. The one time they brought Chance up there too, that was really cool. So like, sometimes fun just, that's all you need. It could be goofy as hell, make no sense, but if it's a lot of fun, it's going to carry it. And in my case, it carried it to number 2. So that leaves number 1, my favorite of the year, is Seek and Destroy. And I know I've actually seen a lot of people put that at 4 and 5, depending on how much they dislike Crypt TV. Yeah, a lot of people do not like Seek and Destroy.
What?
They think the opposite of that 70s sci-fi vibe of We Do. They think it's goofy and stupid and makes no sense at Horror Nights. They don't like the controller aspect. They don't like that, and that's just something that both of us love.
Oh,
Not everyone's gonna have the same thoughts on that. That's fine, but that's our aesthetic. Not only is it our aesthetic, I think they executed it so well. They had so many scare actors.
mm-hmm.
The lighting was great. The way they interacted with you was great. There were so many different varieties of how they interacted with you. The controller was a lot of fun. I don't know that it's an all-timer scare zone for me, but I'd rate it very highly. And I think it's easily number one for me this year.
Yeah. Well, we'll make this quick. Everything you just said, I'll pair it. Because I have it in the same exact order.
Wow.
Funny enough with that. So, yeah, I really enjoyed Haction and Seek and Destroy a lot. There's really not much more to say about the bottom three, but Haction and Seek and Destroy, I thought were really good together with that. They both achieved what they're going for really well. I Seek and Destroy I like more, maybe because I don't have a connection to the other things in Haction.
Mhm.
And unfortunately I never got to saw Jackson either, so I never saw Jack roaming around in there. I saw pictures, but I never got to experience it myself.
Mhm.
But yeah, I thought those two really made up for the other three this year for that. So
if I had to ask for one little clarification,
Mhm.
do you have any reason why Crypt TV and 30 Years, 30 Fears are where they are and not flipped?
Well, Crypt TV is just at the absolute bottom.
No, it's not even close to you.
No.
Oh, okay.
Crypt TV is at the absolute bottom. That zone just ticks me off.
Mhm.
Just thinking about it. And then 30 Years, 30 Fears is like, it's good, but there's just not as much substance as there is in Gorewood.
Mhm.
So that's why Gorewood kind of fits right there. But I think Crypt, Gorewood, and 30 Years are a lot closer to each other than Haction and Seek and Destroy are. Haction and Seek and Destroy, I think, are heads and shoulders above the other three. And it really showed this year.
I'd agree with you. I wouldn't have believed you at the beginning of the year. I was excited for Seek. I wouldn't have believed you about Haction, but here we are.
Yeah,
happens every year. Something always overperforms the hype list.
Yeah.
And as far as scare zones go, for me, that was Haction by far.
We're going to see some overperformers in just a moment, I believe.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into houses here, and I do have my hype list pulled up as well as We've had 3 shows. We slacked. I'm sorry, guys. During the season,
it was busy. We were busy. Scared.
I was gonna wait till the end of the episode, but let me get into this real quick. We do this show about this event that happens 2 months a year, and we are weekly the entire off season. And when you get to the actual event, it is so hard to record because we are out. If it's not 2 a.m., it's still very late. I got to go to bed when I get home, go to work the next day or whatever. 3, 4, 5, sometimes days a week. So finding time for us to get together and record, not easy. And the last time I did, the audio file was corrupt. So yeah, there you go. We didn't say anything about that.
The one episode I've missed since I've helped started recording with y'all, of course, is the one time the audio messes up.
I know, right? I want to say it.
I was in Vegas when that happened.
Yeah, I want to say it had nothing to do with me, but based off the fact that I was doing it and you weren't, yeah, I mean, it probably was. Let's be fair. But anyways, let's hop into houses here, Niko.
Okay, how do you want to do this?
So we'll do it the same way we did last one. We'll just actually talk about all 10. We don't have to talk about them as much as we did scare zones because there's 10 of them. And then we'll do a kind of back and forth list of our ranking.
Okay.
All right. So first, anywhere you want to start just to discuss any house?
Yeah, I just want to talk about them as a whole.
Okay.
To begin with for that. I thought this was a really, and I think I said this at the beginning, it was a really strong year. I believe for houses. It's definitely, of the multiple haunts I went to, it is definitely closer in quality control than like almost any other event, where the best house isn't so far away from the worst house.
Mm.
Uh, like I dislike, you know, my bottom two I dislike, and I never really wanted to go into either one that much anymore. But I don't think they were bad. I just disliked them for that. But yeah, I thought like at minimum they were Bs, maybe a B minus for the least houses. While there are a very strong 3 and a very strong 3 that I heard throughout the event, and maybe even a strong 4 that I heard from people around there that were very close in quality and kept moving around and on people's like lists and stuff, and for very good reason. That those big 4, like, I think you would agree, like there were 4 big houses this year that everybody loved. Like,
I'd
I
say
never
so.
heard a bad thing about 4 of these houses. And then you have the middles, which turned out to be pretty good on their own, really.
Mhm.
With that, um, I will say this about Beetlejuice and Hill House. Um, I know this is an operational thing, but it really fucking sucks how much you have to walk all
Oh
the way
yeah.
back to Hill House and then walk all the way back to Beetlejuice. And
Hmm.
if there is no line for Beetlejuice when you go by the merge, instead of being like, "Oh, can I go in here right here?" No, they make you walk around. I understand why. I understand that. It just that really fucking sucks when you're doing it at 1:30 in the morning. It's not fun. It's a boring backstage walk back there, and that might kind of factor into why maybe I didn't like either one of those houses very much.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think it's one of those things that every HHN fan dreads about the season is that walk, especially if you're going to hit them back to back. Doing that walk 2 times in a row is not fun
Oh,
at
it's bad.
all.
Yeah, it's so
It's
bad.
rough, and especially if you save it, like you said, for later in the night. You're tired. You're maybe already a little sore. It's rough. It is, and that's never going to change. That's where the parade warehouses are. You have to get back to the other areas of the park somehow, right?
Hmm.
It's just one of those unfortunate cases of there's 10 houses, they need to take up a lot of space. There's going to be at some point where you're walking a lot to get to something. So,
I would love a
um,
mini terror tram
right, just
from back there just for
drop you
those two
off there.
houses. Yeah, exactly. That'd be fun. That'd be
But yeah, no, you're right. That's a rough walk, and I think I don't think it did this year for me. But I think in years past, honestly, I've been like kind of judged houses on that. Like, man, that one, it's not worth the walk. I'm not saying one of them this year definitely wasn't worth the walk for me. Um, but like, yeah,
I yeah.
that was regardless of what location it was at. So that had nothing to do with it. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I know what you're saying. It's a rough walk. It's a rough walk.
Mhm. Like
And I might as
like
well pick. Oh, but
I wouldn't have done Scary as many times as I did this year if it wasn't such a short walk. Because Scary's great, like because it's like, oh, it's
oh
the
yeah,
shortest.
it's
You walk right in, walk right out. It's great.
especially
And
when you do like if you do Duff Gardens Stay and Scream, man, that's
yeah.
try and knock it out a couple times just the beginning of the night because it was a walk on for the first at least 30 minutes of the event.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I liked Scary. Scary kind of like moved up on my list a little bit more for
Same.
that.
Same.
I think that's kind of like one of the middle houses that kind of got overlooked. But the more that I like chew on it a little bit, I'm like, you know what? Scary was actually pretty good. Uh, the set and stuff there, it was definitely the unmasking the horror that we did really made me appreciate Scary more
Mhm.
for that. And even though I might have it lower on my list, like when we actually get to there, I'm kind of tipping my hand here. But who had Scary high, to be honest. Uh, um, it was actually probably even though it's low on my list, I would say it is better than where I would say it's on its list,
Mhm.
and that really shows you how strong this event was due to that. Uh, the H&R blood and guts, just like that's the only thing he says. is just funny.
IMHR blood and guts.
It's just the funniest thing. And also just another nitpick, and this kind of goes for like all houses together. If there's a screen, any sort of screen in a house, it is the brightest and clearest picture ever made. Like, I really wish they would have put a filter or something over the television for the H&R Blood and Guts thing to kind of like make it like a little older, like they do over with all the Harry Potter stuff. They put like little filters and stuff, like physical filters over the screen to make it look like that. So it kind of just drags you out of it because you're looking at an old TV with like the clearest the clearest picture you have ever seen. And it was fun watching the full loop when we were doing it.
We were lucky to left that on. Yeah, that was pretty great.
So I got a full loop of that with there. Many people talk about that. So I just wanted to bring a little bit of love that way to Scary. Because I feel like every other house, with maybe exception of Tooth Fairy, maybe because it was there the year before, got pretty good traction on social media, but I didn't really see much from Scary.
I gotta say, I'm happy as someone who doesn't know much about the lore. You obviously pick some up being on this show. It's bound to happen, but you've never experienced anything in that house. So for you to actually go through and start to really enjoy it, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, it's definitely the lesser of the two like fan service houses. I would say, with Icons being the other fan service house. I liked Icons this year with its rotating throne. I thought that was a really fun way.
All right, hold on. Let's slow down. Let me get some Scary.
Okay,
real quick, and then you can hop on.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if you didn't really say much about Scary.
You said enough. But I will add that I want to say it did start off really slow for me. I thought it was. It took them a while to find a rhythm, and I think, it felt like they crammed too much in. Yeah, I feel like there was a lot of different choices they could have made to build a Scary house or a Carry house. But I will say those last couple weeks, man, they were super consistent, and the scare actors were firing on all cylinders, and it made it a lot of fun. And it's not going to end up super high on my list because I still think there were choices that confuse me on why they put what they did in a Carrie tribute house. But it moved up. And even if it didn't actually move up a lot in ranking, moved up a lot in my heart.
Yeah, so shout out to Scary. Probably the only podcast that will probably talk of. This is the most you'll ever hear anybody talk about Scary, Ohio.
And hey, that was a badass facade. I think that's exactly what I'm looking for in a tent facade.
100%. That's very high up there for facades for me.
It's how you keep it. It's a way to keep it simple, yet just clean and great. All right, so now go ahead. Go with Icons.
Oh, I'm just like, trying to bounce around and trying to say a few things with that. Icons was really good with that. I will say that for people that may have some issues with loud sounds and stuff, I thought Icons had the fucking loudest like mirror drop, like where they drop the panel and stuff like that. That is, oh god, I hated. I dreaded walking through that area, and to be honest, I don't think the effect's that good. In there, I know it was explained to me on Unmasking the Horror, but I really don't like that section of it. And it was probably one of the few
not surprising
parts of like any house this year that I actually dreaded going through. It was like, oh great, I have to go through this little part before I get to, Jack through here. And it just kind of sucked, that little section.
And
it's really bad because the rest of it's pretty good. I wouldn't say really good in some areas. I know this is Icon slander on here, and I'm sorry about that. But it was good for there. It was fun seeing that stuff. I thought Jack was really good in that, but I'm kind of bringing a more of a dissenting opinion to Icons since it seems like everybody fucking loves this house. I thought it was really good, but like I don't know. I guess because I don't have a connection to that. Like the storyteller, I don't really like. Oh, they made her a shapeshifter. I'm like, oh, I didn't know what she was before, so I didn't really care about that. And then Lady Luck's thing, yeah, the wheel's cool, but the overuse of mannequins in
Mm.
there, it would have been cool to see a character in the bathtub, instead of just a mannequin. For the director scene, like that would have been cool to see, or been cool to have another character that the usher is like, a character that's reacting to the usher hitting him with the flashlight. I thought it could have been more for that, and unfortunately, yeah, people probably aren't going to like where I'm going to put icons, but
Yeah.
um, they'll just have to deal with it.
Well,
Like, it's not as
Nico,
low as clowns, so don't worry.
I'm gonna validate your feelings a bit here. I want to start off by saying
Yeah.
I love icons. A
Hmm.
lot of that has to do with them purely putting out fan service that struck me correctly.
Hmm.
The house itself, I can critique a lot, you know, even though I love it and it's going to be high on my rankings. I understand that as a house, you know, wasn't the best. And I think if you don't have a connection to the icons and the event as much, it's not going to strike you right. And even some people
Hmm.
who, I do know a couple of people who have been going to the event forever. They love the icons, and they were like, the house just didn't hit. Wasn't what I was looking for. And I I get why. My rankings aren't going to agree with that, but I get why completely.
Hmm.
And one thing you were talking about was the Bloody Mary room. One, the room itself just wasn't great. you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
it simply used dropping mirrors as it
Yeah.
scares, and there was nothing else to it. Literally nothing else. And then add on to the fact that you're kind of basically writing over Bloody Mary as a scare act or as an icon, when you can literally just use Mary Agana or
Hmm.
HHN form, we'll say.
Okay.
So like you don't have to use traditional Bloody Mary. You can just make it full on Mary Agana, and there you go. Should be able to be included in the house. So it kind of feels like erasure, and didn't even make the room fun. So definitely the weakest room in the house by far.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think a lot of what we saw was best of the icons, which I would have preferred to potentially see some new things out of some of them. Um, but at the end of the day, I still loved it, so it's not a huge deal. But I completely understand why some people don't love the house much.
Yeah, and like for those that really love the house, like I'm glad you really did for that. I just, Fear's really cool. Fear actually might be one of my favorite part of that house.
Mhm.
Fear and the Usher scene were really cool. For some reason, did you like miss a lot of the director scares? Because like it was
Well,
dead almost every single time I went through there.
by missing, you mean he was not there a lot. There was,
Yeah, that's
I
what I mean.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
during a lot of the middle of the event, especially, staffing issues were huge across the board at the event. And
Hmm.
in Icons, one of the scares you would lose a lot of that time was the director. So yeah, he was just MIA quite a bit. Um,
Which is really bizarre because like on nights where case files and puppet theater and wicked growth, it felt like they had every single scare, like every single boo hole was filled, every single one was in there.
mhm.
Icons felt like it was very empty
Yeah,
comparatively through there.
and it
And
also comes down to
maybe
which cast. Every cast is
true.
going to be
Yeah,
a bit different.
true. And I guess Icons was probably the most inconsistent house for me this
It was
year.
up there. It was up there for sure.
Yeah.
I'd argue another one. I'll just say it now 'cause it's not full
Yeah.
review. But Bride had a lot of staffing issues and made it super inconsistent,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
unfortunately. Because when that house hits, it hits.
Yeah.
But when it's empty, you're like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. It's real sad, unfortunately, with that.
So
And that kind of hurt it this year
yeah,
in the ranking. Just keep dripping and dropping it in there.
that's
So
yeah. It's on. There. It's not the first one. There are some phenomenal houses that the event has had that have been hurt by inconsistencies because, at the end of the day, it depends what you see. And if I go to a house 10 times, right, but eight of the times it wasn't performing at its peak, that's going to weigh down eventually. I'm not going to remember that one perfect run and forget the others. That's not how it works, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So, and I guess we're talking about Bride now. Yeah, that hurt it this year a lot. And I think one of those for me, one of the big ones that stands out, that bungee scare. I'd say 90% of my, probably 95% of my runs
Mhm.
missing, not there.
Yep.
And I'm not
Only
talking
hey.
like I missed it, not there. Me peeking in, nothing back there. Uh, not I didn't stick my head through. Don't worry, I'm not. There's like that. But like obviously not there, not present. And that big of a scare and an effect missing out of a house gonna drag it down. But
It's
that wasn't the
sad,
only
yeah.
one either. There's a lot of other ones that would be missing throughout the year. So I feel like Bride was hurt a lot by inconsistencies. To me, it was definitely the most inconsistent of the houses in an already inconsistent year, just based off the staffing levels. So,
Yeah.
uh, it's not like it's going to be at the bottom of my list now or anything, but it definitely hindered its potential of where it
Yeah.
could have been because it was better at light. I'm going to say it was better at light than it was this year.
Hmm. Yeah, totally with that. I never saw the bungee scare this year.
Not
So
once.
I never had a run with it. Yeah, not
Wow.
once. Because you keep saying bungee scare, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh yeah, I never got it. Now that I think about it,
You remember it from a year ago?
I do remember from a year ago. But you're right, I never got it this year, unfortunately. With that, yeah, it's really sad that that is something that you really like. Unfortunately, like, it just moves down just due to the inconsistency of it, and I completely understand. Like people don't want to get may not want to work for that, or like some people who want to be characters and they look forward to doing this every year. Like that, some people take time off of their work from their real job so they can be characters for the
Hmm.
year during this time. But some other people are like, no, I need a paycheck, so like I'm not going to subject myself to this pay and the suffering, having to go to makeup and the suffering of like maybe getting punched by a guest that's going through the house, which that's completely understandable. So um hopefully Universal takes the correct steps to address any staffing issues that we might have going forward when it comes to this. So maybe we get a few more consistent runs, which it's fine for you and me to complain about that. But think about like the one-time visitor. I think it really hurts their enjoyment, and that's really where I'm trying to position myself from. It's like the one-time visitor goes through, and then they see like icons and Bride have like sparsely populated cast within it,
Hmm.
and I think it really could create a detriment to there
Oh, it does.
uh
Absolutely.
for the one time guest that goes through there. And it could be like, yeah, maybe I won't come as much, or maybe I'll have to wait till I see that this issue has been fixed.
Yeah,
So
there were nights that I didn't have a single good run. I would do maybe
really,
not all 10, but most of the houses, and every single one very poorly staffed and a lot of missing holes. And if that's the one night I'm going a year as another guest, then do you want to come back next year and see that? Did you enjoy it that much? I don't know.
yeah.
It's definitely a detriment for sure. And it's obviously not as easy as just flipping a switch and you have more consistency. Um, but yeah, I think, listen, scare acting at HHN might be the toughest theme park job in Orlando.
Hmm.
It is the hours, the physicality, the risks, honestly, unfortunately, that exist in it. It takes a toll on you, and a lot of first timers don't make it through the year. Hell, a lot of returning scare actors don't make it through the year because maybe the year before and a couple years before were fine and the roles weren't too bad, but they get stuck with something really difficult. Um, it's just everything about it is a very tough role. it's something that unless you're really passionate about, or you just really need that job, I I understand why people drop out. Not easy, very difficult.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
to be honest,
Thinking of
Universal has to pay more. To be,
yeah,
if you,
and
you really want them to stick around, you're gonna have to pay them enough to want to do that.
exactly. And Universal just announced their most profitable quarter ever.
Yep.
The last quarter of the year that ended on October 1st, which would include about a month
Of
of horror
HHN.
nights,
Yeah.
makes that their most profitable quarter ever. Granted, Beijing also opened during
Mhm.
that quarter as well, so I don't know if some of that money is kind of fuddled in with that. But Comcast can definitely afford to pay those employees more, especially since they set themselves as a premier one. Then they need to pay premier prices.
And here's I'm 100% for pay everyone more at the parks. But if you are not going to, there should still be a very large premium placed on being a scare actor at HHN. Because if you don't even do that, the staffing issues aren't going to change too much. It's always
Hmm.
been an issue, which is why they've had to bring in their cast later in the season. Why they've had to keep bringing people in throughout the year, because like you just don't get paid enough to take that. Again, not easy. So pay more and people stay.
All right. So without tipping our hands too much, do we kind of want to jump into the rankings back and forth? Because like it's going to be hard to talk about some of these other ones
Yeah,
without
yeah, yeah.
saying like that, because we're
Trying
kind
to.
of dancing around the issue. There's obvious omissions to what we haven't said during this
Yeah,
discussion, which I know are going to be placed somewhere higher up on our list. So
yeah.
if you want to start on that.
Let's do it. Yeah, you can kick us off with your number 10.
Yeah, Tooth Fairy. Uh, what a surprise with that. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of mouth horror. I've already said plenty of times how much I don't like this house. Uh, the runs were consistent, I guess. I finally did get this character in the kitchen, that kitchen scene, that with that big thing of plexiglass. I'm like, oh, I know there's something supposed to be here. I finally saw it one night, so I
Oh,
did get
there
to
you
see
go.
that one
There you go.
character. It wasn't worth it. Uh, Tooth Fairy is like that. I don't think it'll be as much of a meme as Killer Clowns for me, but them two are pretty close to each other, to be honest.
And I think you have that as 10 on your hype list, right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely 10 on my hype list because I mean I'd already seen it, so
Well, funny enough, Nico, my number 10 on my hype list is also number 10 on my final list. And this is easy, very easy choice. That's Beetlejuice.
mm,
I think, here's the thing, we call it Beetlejuice Day from last year. A lot of fun. Had a blast. So this house will always have good memories for me just because of everything that went along with that day.
mhm.
Um, and the year that it was taking place in. Um, but when you put it in a full event against 9 other houses, man, it fell so flat. Um, I think that took the fun house aspect too far. Um,
Okay.
the scares, and I'm sure this had a lot to do with COVID and plexi and vinyl and all that. The scares were literally not there, like period. The end. The only place you could argue that they were there at all was the Lost Souls hallway. And I think, and listen, here's the deal: if you are someone who does not mind that, and that's your favorite style of house, that's great. I'm not saying it doesn't necessarily have a place at the event. On a personal level, that's not what I enjoy at a haunt. Just not my thing. Um, so it's an easy number 10 for me. And I think a big thing is we expected it to get pretty plus going into this year, right? And the fact
Mhm.
they took stuff away. A big omission. I think it was their opening weekend. The priest scare actor became a
Yeah.
static prop,
Yeah, that was funny.
and they had boo holes that were literally covered up, and nothing was added. It made the Deo scene bland. The
Oh yeah.
sandworm I got about as often as I got the bride bungee scare. Man, I just did not enjoy that house very much.
Hmm.
It's pretty low. It's not my least favorite house of all time or anything, but it's not exactly high on my all time list either. We'll say.
Yeah, I knew you weren't high on the Beetlejuice there with that. So
Which I will say, I think the facade interactive Beetlejuice was fun. I think I probably would have enjoyed an actual facade more, maybe though. I think it set the tone of what it was. It's all about fun. Nothing else. It's all about fun.
yeah, it was fun there, but it's probably not worth multiple walks back there during a night unless you're a big Beetlejuice fan
Yeah.
or your cousin works there, as is the case of like one of our friends.
Yeah. I do want to real quick before anyone kind of knocks what I said. When I say fun, I don't mean fun as in I had a lot of fun. I mean fun as in they're simply going for fun.
Mhm.
Because what I find fun as a haunt um, is everything else. So yeah, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm not saying having fun in a house is a bad thing. I'm saying they were trying to make you have traditional fun and not.
Mhm.
Anyways, I already said what I said.
Yeah.
You can like whatever you like. That's fine. I'm not going to knock you for it. If you have Beetlejuice at one, which I know people do, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm happy you had a great time. And I hope, they have other houses for you in the future, but it'll probably end up pretty low on my list again.
Mhm.
Just like Ghostbusters did. I think it was like number 8 for me. Similar approach, done better, in my opinion, but similar approach.
Well, number 9 on my list is its neighbor, Hill House. For that one.
Mm.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just kept sliding and sliding, and I like it better than Tooth Fairy, but not a lot, to be honest with you. I think the reason I put Hill House above Tooth Fairy is because the pregnant lady towards the end, I
Hmm.
think that's a really cool effect how they did that. So I really enjoyed seeing that. Uh, uh, but the dark hallways were good with the audio with that. But maybe if I had a connection to the IP, I would have liked it more. But it just kind of felt bland to me. Uh,
Hmm.
Also, during our unmasking the horror, this just felt like I was like so bored during this part. I
Yes,
wanted
you
to
were.
leave so fucking
You were
bad.
very
I was like,
frustrated
I
in there.
don't care about any of this. Can we just go to something fun again? I did not, and that kind of like maybe that outside factors count into that. But yeah, I don't like it. The Pepper's ghost effect with the hanging of Nell never worked for me. To be honest with you, um,
Hmm.
I didn't really like that. Um, the two best ones were the face coming out of the rock, the face on a stick, which I think is very funny, and the copious amount of Publix products in and this is supposed to be England, right? The United Kingdom.
No, it's in
Okay.
Massachusetts.
Oh, in Massachusetts. Yeah. Apparently there's one Publix in Salem that they all go and shop at. Uh apparently there's also one in Texas as well, but we'll get to that. Uh um but yeah, Hill House, it's all right. It felt like there was better effort behind it than Tooth Fairy.
Hmm.
Like I liked it better than Tooth Fairy, but not a whole lot. Uh, but yeah, I'm just pretty lukewarm on this house. I can see where it's good and people liked it.
Hmm.
That's why I would like rank it like a B minus, but it's not something I would like go and experience again. Like I'm not gonna have nostalgia for Hill House.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think there are things about it I'll remember and enjoy, but it not really a spoiler because I talked about this before. But on my initial reaction episode, I had this at 9. I will say it's changed, but obviously I have at some point and still do share a lot of feelings that you just said.
Hmm.
And I know you're going to share a lot of feelings about my number 9, which is Tooth Fairy,
Yeah.
um, which was number 8 on my hype list. So dropped a bit from there. Otherwise, it's been pretty consistently my number 9 throughout the season. So, a lot of the same reasons you say. I think the facade's a lot of fun. It's super unique. I love it. I like the storytelling element to it. I like the way it's laid out in that sense. Honestly, I think a lot of it really does have to come down to this was meant to be the super tight. I feel like I've said this a million times on our show already. Not this episode, but just in general. Super tight, claustrophobic, scary house, and the vinyl didn't allow that to happen. So we never got to experience full Tooth Fairy. That's unfortunate, but it's what we got, and that's what I get to rank, and that's number 9 for me.
Yeah, that's pretty much there. Number 8 for me was Beetlejuice. So it sounds like we're kind of all like getting it all out right now around the bottom. Beetlejuice, I do think is, but I'm not as harsh on it as you are. For Beetlejuice, I like the fun aspects of it. I think the Beetlejuice characters are really good. Like all of them were really good. I think they used him a lot. They used Beetlejuice in the house a lot more than they used Beetlejuice in the movie, which is fun for that. Sandworm's cool. The set design was really cool. Vortex
when
Tunnel.
you see him.
Yeah, when you see him. Yeah. The Vortex Tunnel is really fun with that. And yeah, I liked Beetlejuice. But unfortunately, it is one of those things where it's like I don't like it enough to make this trek back there. So it does kind of suffer from the oh my god, do I really want to do this right now house?
Yeah. No.
Unfortunately, and and it sucks because Universal Monsters was back in one of the Prairie warehouses, and Graveyard Games was back there.
Yeah, those made you want to go back there.
Those didn't make me want to go back there, but these two, yeah, not so much, unfortunately. We'll talk about another pair of excellent neighbors later on.
They are excellent.
Yeah, the excellent neighbors there. But yeah, Beetlejuice. Like I said, I liked it a lot better than you did, probably. Since like you refused to say anything good about it.
I mean, I said I enjoyed
the
Beetlejuice presence, and in the improv, and I think that's the perfect way to use the Vortex Tunnel. Like the transition into the afterlife. I thought that was really cool.
100%
use it. That's about it.
Yeah,
I think a lot the scare actors' performances were actually really good. I think, like you said, a lot of the Beetlejuices they nailed him. They nailed him for sure. So
100%, they did great casting at the Beetlejuice house because you could have gotten the worst, I think I made this joke about the line of white guys, lined up outside of there going, like practicing like Beetlejuice voice, like outside in the line. It's just a funny image to me. Hey, like that. But that's Beetlejuice. So what's your number 8?
My number 8. This one is hard. Let me tell you, like this. I want to say honestly, 5 to 8 is a tough range for me, really tough. And which is what you were saying before. There's like a really strong 4, and then after that it gets tougher. I settled with it, and I kind of don't know if I fully stand behind it. But looking at it, I just don't. I don't know how to drop anything else, and that's scary. I think it was definitely higher on my hype list. Give me 1 second. Number 4 on my hype list. I will say though, the things that worried me about Scary, why I didn't have it higher than 4, because honestly, it's fan servicey approach. I wanted to put higher on my hype list. I was worried about how they'd approach the compilation aspect, and that's kind of what brought it down for me. We already talked about it a lot. I don't have to go into much detail.
Yeah.
It was at a risk of falling to 9, even. Honestly, but the strong finish got it up to 8. And honestly, even had me thinking, like I said, 5 to 8, I could in my mind see changing any of them anywhere. So you're possibly looking at, I enjoyed it enough to be number 5, but at the end of the day, it didn't have a strong enough season for me. And there's just too many times they missed the mark. So I unfortunately have to put it at 8. And at the beginning of the year, I would have said, okay, that's fine. But now I feel a little bit bad having it that low, but it's what I got.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. My 7 through 4 is definitely a tier above my 10 through 8. So basically, I have 3 tiers. I have my top 3, which is its tier. My 7 through 4 is a tier. My 10 through 8 is a tier. But Scary is my number 7
Oh,
for
perfect.
that. Which is to segue right in. It definitely was a lot better as the season went on. I would say it's
Mhm.
probably the house that I think improved the most
I'd agree with that.
for that. And I know we've already talked about that to length there, but yeah, Scary I think is definitely part of the mid. It's weird calling something mid tier here, but you could definitely see that it is a step above, Beetlejuice and Tooth Fairy. You can definitely tell like a lot more love kind of went into this, and mainly
Mhm.
and so much detail that you can't fucking see with the lights off in there
Yep.
that they just crammed into this house. Like you could definitely see the passion flow through there with that. But unfortunately, there are 6 other houses that are better than it this year. But that's really not to discredit Scary, because I think Scary is in my opinion, probably the most surprising house of the year, to me at least, by like
Mm.
how much like I actually no, I take that back. It's the second most surprising house, because there's one coming up that I myself was very surprised that I enjoyed a lot, and was very low on my hype list. I
Do you
think Scary
remember?
was like mid. I think
Okay.
it was around this area, like
Okay.
6 or 7,
Gotcha.
because like I once again I had it no, I had it in the top 5, because like it was like, oh, this is an original, so I'm gonna put an original higher,
Mhm.
but I'm putting it at the lowest of originals because I have no connection to the IP,
Yeah.
the original IP. So uh, I think that's where I think I had it right behind Icons. Like I think I had Scary at 5, and then like Icons at 4 or something like that.
Mhm.
Now I'm trying to remember back. I don't have mine written down, so I apologize for that.
Oh, that's all
So,
right. You can
but
wing it.
Scary Ohio, number 7.
Okay. Well, my number 7, in this one, worked its way up quite a bit. Well, it worked its way down and then back up. Uh, was number 5 on my hype list. Dropped as far as number 9. We talked about it a bit earlier, and that's Haunting of Hill House. And man, let me tell you, I had some bad run throughs to start. We talked about this after the initial reaction, how they literally have the 3 hanging nails so you will never miss it. And they explain it to you that way so you'll never miss it. And I literally missed it my first 2 run throughs, all 3 of them. I like like 1 or 2 of them must have not been working for me not to see them. It's like I was running through or anything. I was trying to take my time, but man, I had some issues with this house and missing just a lot early on. Just bad run after bad run after bad run. I will say it got a lot better. I think that basement scene is one of the scariest things they possibly the scariest stretch of any house this year. I think it probably is. Um, and the sets just looked really good. Like you said, honestly, when we did the tour, a little boring in the light, but when it's dark, I thought that looked great. And it was a pretty intense house, to be honestly. So yeah, it's not. I feel like a lot of people have it anywhere from 1 to 3, right? But it doesn't
Yeah.
hit that mark for me. It wasn't
Mm-mm.
the best house. It wasn't even the best IP. I had really high hopes for it. I love the property. I just feel like it was, it's tough to say like it even missed the mark on anything, because when you go through it, there's no point. I'm like, well, maybe I would have done this or would have done that, because I don't think that happens. So maybe this is just kind of the level that this IP was always going to be for me.
Hmm.
And you know what? Maybe if this had a hotter start, it would have ended up higher too. Maybe like 5 or something. But that's this is where I got to put it. It ended up making its way from 9 to 7. So good for
Hey,
Hill House.
good on
And
you,
I'll
Hill House.
I'll always remember that basement stretch. That was a great stretch of the house. So
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
and then also the stinger scare at the end with Tall Man. He was fucking massive. And that was great.
Yeah, that is a really good way to end that house. It's so funny that how Hill House finishes really strong. After like starting off not so well. Like the facade is really cool.
Hmm.
But then after that, it just kind of is like meh. I'm like, I'm waiting to see the pregnant lady at the end. That's what I'm waiting on.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the tall man. All right, so I'm gonna get canceled for this next one.
Oh, here comes icons then.
Yep, exactly. Yep. And I think that's why I wanted to talk about that kind of earlier. About that, I kind of tipped my hand. I don't have as much of a connection to it, and icons I think started higher for me, but I think when I compare it to the other ones that I have on my list, I think it's in its right position. I don't see it being better. I see it being better than the ones I've mentioned previously, but I personally don't see it as a better house than the other ones, mainly because of the inconsistency of that house. Uh, it had the one part where I completely dreaded going through the Bloody Mary room, and props to having repeatability with the throne room like that. But I only saw Jack and the director through the times I went through there, and I did icons pretty much every night that I went because I wanted to see something different on the throne. And unfortunately, every run of icons that I did just got progressively worse. Unfortunately, I think they really did the right thing by having my best run on icons was the opening night, and I remember being so much hype for icons opening night that everyone ran through. But yeah, it just disintegrated over time, unfortunately. Uh, with that, so but that's where it sits. I've said my piece about it, and I know I'm probably going to be hated for this one again too, but I'm not saying that icons is bad. It's not. I think it's a solid B plus. It's definitely better than the 4 I've mentioned, but it's not as good as the rest this year.
Hey, that's fair. I understand exactly why you'd say that. So
Yeah.
yeah, no qualms with me. All right.
What's your number 6?
My number 6 is actually very close to where it was on my hype list, which was 7. It was number 6 after my initial reaction. It moved up to number 5 every other week and finally dropped back down at the end. And that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which,
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, number 6, that doesn't sound like a spot where it's like, yeah, I really enjoyed that, but man, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a super fun take on the property. I enjoyed that it wasn't just the original 74 film and that they included Chop Top and made it kind of almost hokey. Like this whole time I've liked to describe it as a serious house that doesn't take itself seriously. And I think that approach made it a lot of fun. And I think, from what I've seen from Texas Chainsaw and then the previous 2 times I've experienced it on this coast, it was a nice break from just a super serious, here's fucking Leatherface, and I think the sets and the space usage, being in a soundstage, helped it a lot compared to like 26. So yeah, I it's tough because I really don't have anything bad to say about it. But I look at the 5 that are ahead of it, and I could potentially move it above 1, but I can't do it. Can't do it.
Yeah, we are in this weird area where, and I will say, like, my 7 through 4 are all really close, to be honest. But it just came down to comparing, what would do better in me personally here with that. Which, we'll kind of see where Chainsaw ends up for me. It's not my number 5 because Bride is my number 5, actually.
Oh, look at that. Look at Mr.
Yeah.
Bride might be my favorite house of all time. Has it at number 5.
It's amazing like how far it fell. It didn't feel as good as it did during HHN Light. And maybe it's because it was head and shoulders better than Tooth Fairy.
Yeah,
like
I'm sure
I had so much hype for that. But then I go and I experience everything that happens this year, and it's like that for there. I actually had icons ahead of Bride until the last weekend when, icons just completely went down. And I'm like, you know what? I think I prefer Bride a little bit more. I enjoy all of the house. There's no part of Bride that I dislike. And I think that's what hurts icons mainly for me. But we've gone over with Bride. Really good. Everyone seemed to really like it at HHN Light, and everyone seemed to like it this year, and people seem to like it on the West Coast as well, which I know is different than what we had out here. But yeah, I think number 5 is a perfect spot for this house, I would say. And there are probably a lot of people that have Bride at number 5. And then they have icons at number 4 right after it, or Scary and Chainsaw right behind it. I think these houses right along here are all pretty much around the same quality, at least my opinion, around the same quality and the same quality of what we experienced throughout the event and consistency. So Bride sits comfortably at number 5.
Well, it's funny that you say a lot of people probably have this at number 5 because my number 5 is Bride.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We have to be completely honest. Being there 2 years in a row and the way we got to experience it this year, it probably hurt it. Whether we even fully realize it, it had to have affected it in some way, in a negative way. And especially since it didn't have a strong start. I feel like early on, Light's version outperformed 30's version by quite a bit. Bride, as the cast started to fill out a bit more, as they started to get a little bit better staffing moving later into the event, picked up a lot. But at the end of the day, it's still an extremely beautiful house, phenomenal story. The scare actors absolutely kill it, and the way they get to approach you was great. And it kind of sounds baity from Universal, and then I like bite on this, but it feels super important and special that like they used this house as an opportunity to build on the actual diversity of cast too. We got like multiple Black Bride of Frankensteins.
Yeah.
Obviously, and I think something that we see in society now a lot is like this casting of characters, not as they originally were in other media, and then people get so upset. And Bride of Frankenstein is, a lighter skinned woman. Any other time you would see her in media,
sometimes very light skin.
Yes, exactly. So getting this in the house, it just felt important to the event, and hopefully the way they'd approach things moving forward, where it's more diverse in all senses, all body types too, is a huge thing that we want to see progress at this event. So, it feels kind of like they're like, that's what they were going, if you want to look at it as a devil's advocate, that's what they wanted, you to feel that way about it. But I hope that's because they're actually moving that direction. So it feels like an important thing that they did, and hopefully it is a direction they're moving towards.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I love the fact, and you know what? It doesn't really mess with that. Like like to me, I don't really see like, oh, that's cool that they did that. Like I don't. Why would I get upset that they decided to cast, Black people in the Bride of Frankenstein house? Like, if that's something that you're getting upset over, you really need to sit down and think about like why you're getting upset over something like this.
Because that's not how she is. That's not her.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can hear your dog whistle from here. All right. I bet you listen to Boss Hog Radio when you drive in from Plant City. All right. That's a very local joke. But yeah. All right. So number 4, I cannot believe it is this high up on my list, and I never thought I would like a house like this as much as I ever would. But for some reason, it really clicked with me, and that is Chainsaw.
Yeah,
the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I fucking love this house.
Now, I quickly got to ask you: was our tour kind of a turning point a bit for you too?
I really liked it when I went through it the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And then going through the horror, unmasking the horror really made me like it a lot more, which was really funny. And then I'm like, oh, it's such a great little house through there. It's unfortunate that some people had to go through and rip those lost dog posters off the telephone pole and ruin the fun for all of us. So shame on you for doing that, because that was a really cute aspect of the house. It's really small, and like only if you knew that it was there would you ever like get enjoyment out of
It's
that.
those little details that make the difference, though.
Exactly. And talk about details. This house is fucking full of them. There are details in every little single bit of this house. So stuff you can't even see because of that. With there. And it is just an amazing house. And I had great run throughs every single time. The one where you go next to the red door and he runs down the hallway. Amazing. Every single part of there it was just really well done, and I was glad to see an IP done this well, because like, I went during 29 and I was like, oh, these IPs are good, but these originals are definitely the better ones. But this really felt like an original house going through there. Like, and I barely have a connection to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like it's okay. Like I don't like horror movies really like that, but I really like the house, so I might go back and watch the movies now because I like this house so much.
Look at that.
Funny enough.
So you said 4 through 7 are basically all interchangeable, but I feel like TCM might be on a level of its own, huh?
TCM might, now that I say it,
because I can hear you glowing from here.
Yeah, I kind of want to like temper it with people there, and like don't want people to think that I'm an idiot for putting Texas Chainsaw Massacre as my number 4 and Icons at 6.
Jonathan from Hung Up on Theme Parks has not released his official rankings yet, but if you've ever listened to him, it is his favorite for sure.
Yeah, that is.
You are not alone in enjoying Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That is true with that. But I really enjoy Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it kind of does slide into its own little tier, I would say, into that little tiny slot next to, it's just outside of the top 3. But that really goes to show you how good that is, because the top 3 that I know, we're going to hear what your number 4 is, but I feel like our top 3 may not be the same order, but I believe it's going to be the same 3 houses, and these are the same 3 that I've been hearing all event. But I absolutely love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm glad I got to go through it. People didn't like the smell through there, which is fine.
Yeah, smells have never bothered me in houses, to be honest.
Yeah,
they're not the actual smells of the things, and I feel like, I don't know, I just don't fully pick up on them on the way that other people do, I guess. Like, it doesn't smell like anything disgusting to me in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It has a very distinct smell, but it doesn't smell like bodies or anything like that.
And this also was probably the house least affected by plexiglass, I would say. From what I saw, with that, I mean, there were definitely some areas there
were a few, but yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I feel like a lot of them were more open, especially a lot below their faces. They were very open to come at you.
Yeah, and a lot of times when they were behind something, they had the chainsaw behind the metal grate so they could do the spark effect, which is really cool.
Yeah.
With that. But yeah, chainsaw at my number 4. Very happy to have it there. I'm gonna miss that house. I'm gonna these next 4. I'm gonna miss being able to go through.
Oh man. So yeah, number 4. This one was tough. And it's one that actually ended up dropping a bit. On my hype list, I had it at number 3, and then it actually sat at 3 literally every week until this week. I finally built up the courage to drop it, and that's Case Files.
Oh no.
So here's the thing. Case Files, great house. I love the noir approach and seeing that in an HHN house. I love how deeply they took in that legendary truth lore and even built upon it. And I just loved following in Boris Schuster's footsteps, someone who you knew about but never had even seen actual representation of at the event. The only issue is it never got worse, but it was so stagnant the entire event. It just coasted. There was never a night where I was like, holy shit, Case Files was amazing tonight. It was just always like, yeah, Case Files. Yeah, case files. Yeah, case file. It just stayed the same. And I feel like there's just another house that I'll say next that deserved to jump it at 3. And that's not really a knock on case files. Again, it was stagnant. It stayed at a really high place, but I didn't do enough to keep its spot at number 3.
Oh,
Character design, also, I want to point out, loved it. Character design was great. Those monsters.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh.
You said monsters, and then it went dead after that. So.
Oh, that was me. I had a little like internal burp.
Oh, okay.
We're leaving this all in, by the way.
Yeah, we're leaving that. Oh no.
Oh, no.
We've done well. It's been 2 hours and we've done so well.
That's why I'm leaving it in. Anyways, it's one of those, I feel like a lot of these I'm not going to have too much to say because they are all really, really, really good. The big thing I just want to harp on here is that something else just got good enough to pass it at 3. And that's the only reason it's down at 4 now.
It got an honorable mention at 4. Wow. That really surprises me. Yeah. I thought we were going to have, a top 3 with those.
No. Because remember, I have not said something that you've already said.
I know. That's why I was surprised. I thought that was going to be your number 4.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
To be honest with you, I thought that was going to be your number 4.
No. You would think the way I talked about it, yeah, but no.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really surprising for there. We'll talk about case. I'll say my piece about that a little bit later for there. But I'll go into my number 3, which was probably so scary was I think I said scary was really surprising, like how much I liked that house. And then I said, oh, it was surprised how much I like Chainsaw, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like I surprised how much I like this house. I am still very, very surprised about how much I enjoyed Puppet Theater this year. Puppet Theater is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, is it good? I had great run-throughs every single time I went through there. Hamlet is always great in there.
Oh, love it. Can you? I'm just here. I hate to bring it up one more time. Can you imagine Hamlet without the vinyl in front of him?
Yeah. Oh, it would have been so good to have that with there. It's so good. Just how claustrophobic they made it. Like it really felt like you were like going backstage at the theater and underneath the stage and everything like that. And it's really weird that you have a house this high up that has probably the most disappointing finale of all the houses is that weird stretchy puppet at the end.
I do want to say, weird stretchy puppet looked really cool.
Yeah, it did. It just wasn't a payoff. I felt like they were building to something a little bit bigger, but the payoff wasn't there. But the rest of the house definitely makes up for it, especially the theater scene. When you walk into the theater and like, oh my God, I'm in a because you can see the tent house from outside, and you're like, oh, okay, and then you come in here and you're like, what? Like this is in this house. It blows you away.
Mm-hmm.
And I was blown away by Puppet Theater. The smells in Muppet Theater were really good.
Is it like Muppet Theater?
Muppet. Oh, I kept calling it. I think I just kept calling it Muppet Theater. Like,
well, you know how they just had the Haunted Mansion Muppet special? What if they did a Muppet Theater? What if Universal was like, hey, hold on, let me borrow that real quick and made Muppet Theater?
Have like what Gonzo do the Hamlet scene and then have Miss Piggy up on the balcony while like that would have been good. That would have been fun to see. But yeah, Puppet Theater. I don't know what more can be said about a house that everyone seemed to really enjoy. Yeah,
it's my number 3, so I'll figure out more to say right now.
It is your number 3. Wow.
Yeah. So, fun fact: this was number 6 on my hype list. And that was because I think it was a mixture of we had seen so much of it, or we thought so from the preview that we saw last year, and also that I'm not a theater kid at all. Like, a lot of HHN fans tend to be, that helped a lot. And I feel like there just was that missing connection. And I feel like through a lot of this season, I had that missing connection. where it just didn't fully click for me. Um, but at the end of the day, I just kind of decided it doesn't matter. It never fully clicked. I never got that full connection with it that a lot of people felt. But man, it was a great house regardless. The sets were beautiful and claustrophobic. And then the new fully open up to this grand scale with elevated scare actors. These scare actors were also unique. There was no repetitiveness to this at all. You had the mirror scare, the two-sided mirror scare. You had the wardrobe scare.
Yeah.
The effects, especially, it sounds stupid. We talk about the finale. You're expecting something a little bit bigger, but even just like the fucking like earthquake and the building crumbling with just simply sound effects and the fog pumping at the end was a really cool touch. All the puppetry, the baby, the little dancing gnome guy.
The gnome guy's so funny.
There were so many different aspects of this house. It had anything you could ask for. Like, no, there was never the same scare actor toy, and I think that goes a long way. And so many different effects. And yeah, it's again never fully clicked with me on a personal level, but it was so good. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it ended up number 3 in past Case Files, which fully clicked for me. So that says a lot about how good this house was.
Wow, that's really good to hear that you have it right there with that.
And you want to be completely honest, it almost snagged number 2. It was not far off.
Hey, there's 2. Yeah, it's so close though. Like these 3, at least for me. Well, it's different than your 3 that are left. Are so close to each other that it really does that. And this is where we get into interesting territory.
Well, not for me. This is where it gets clearer. Because my number 1, I think, is I have solid number 1. Number 2 and 3 and even 4 were a little pretty tight.
I thought I had solid number 1 for a while. But the more that I think about it and the more that I chew on it, there was one house that I keep thinking about a lot more than this one. So number 2, I hate to do this.
Oh no.
It's Wicked Growth.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so good. It's such a great, Halloween house. It's probably one of the best like unique houses and unique storylines that they've ever come up with. It's the Pumpkin Lord. He grows Halloween. Like that's so fun. And the facade walking down the jack-o'-lantern tunnel to go inside, and then you have a scare right as you go in with like the slits there. There are just so many good things about this house, and like everyone can wax poetically about it as we go on. The giant pumpkin head that comes out to you after you cross over the excellently done covered bridge, and through there. There's really nothing bad you can say about Wicked Growth, and I think a lot of people will remember Wicked Growth fondly. And of course, Universal latched onto it with all the Lil Boo stuff that they did this year, and like even fans made their own shirts that have Lil Boos on them,
I believe
which I thought was very cute.
Little boobies.
Little boobies. I thought that was really cute when I saw that. God, it was so good. It was such a great house, and like I can't keep saying like what more can I say than I say, oh, this house is great. Just seeing the Pumpkin Lord in their beautiful costumes and stuff. I had great runs all through every evening through there. It's really good, but I just. For something I went the last night and I was like, you know what? I think I like this one a little bit more. You can go ahead and just say like Case Files is my number 1.
Yeah, go ahead
for that because it's just going to be easier to do that. So Case Files is my number 1, and I think I put it there because it was the most consistent. So I'm actually like using your logic for this case there. I never had a bad run in Case Files, and I picked up more and more about Case Files every single run that I did. and I came to really, really appreciate it a lot. The Boris Schusters, both of them were really good in there. The collection of the totems going through is a whole lot of fun. Just like the noir aspect of it is so unique, and I think that's where it kind of sets it apart. Is that Case Files is such a unique style and a unique way to do a house that it really sets it apart, and I think sets it above Wicked Growth. And I think because of the uniqueness, that it's kind of a different take on the house genre and or this type of story you can tell within a house sets it a little apart from there. Because Wicked Growth, when you boil it down, is a bit of a generic style. It's the pumpkin lord, like he grows Halloween. Like, I completely get that. And it's super well done that way. And Universal Creative did a great job with that. But Universal Creative also put the best thing that has ever gone into Shrek Theater, and it might be the last time we ever go into Shrek Theater, depending on what they decide to do with that building. And I'm glad that's one of the last things that it gets to go out on. Is that
it definitely broke the Shrek Theater curse for me.
Yeah, Case Files is so good, and I keep thinking about it more than I think about anything else. Like just turning the corner and seeing the Kitty Cat Club flash in neon, and then you walk in and you see the singer on stage. Oh man, just every single aspect. And then the devil scare at the end, the giant devil head. Oh, it's so good. Every part of Case Files is amazing, and it always had a short wait. So you're always able to just like make it was always the first house I did. I did that every single night. I did Case Files, Wicked Growth, and Puppet Theater every single night that I was there. And it was well worth it every single night I was there to do that. And yeah, I'm very surprised myself that I put Case Files over Wicked Growth, but that's
Niko,
just how it ends up.
That Shrek Theater went from worst to first for you.
It did go from worst to first. And I think
all-time worst to first too.
I think it did too.
Yeah.
I think Shrek Theater is bookended for me, which is really, really funny.
That's
how
amazing.
that ends up. To possibly be the last house that ever goes into Shrek Theater. Possibly. Who knows what they're going to do with it? I hope they do some sort of.
They could leave that second space open too. The second theater open for a house still. To be seen.
Who knows?
At least for a bit. We'll see. I think there's longer term plans with that building, but for now, we'll see. We'll see.
But number 1 and number 2 all time are definitely Case Files and Wicked Growth for me.
Hey,
out of the 20, the 20 houses I've done. That's
not a weird number anymore because you just did the 3 again this year. Well, you want to hear some really fun fact here? So like hype lists, I always knock them. Like I make fun of how wrong they're gonna be. I'll like my number 6 and 4 will be correct because why not some random middle number? My number 1, I don't think I've ever got right. My last, I've never got right, I don't think. Well, this year I've already nailed last place. Number 2 and number 1 are also spot on to my hype list. And not only that, they stayed that way the entire event. So number 2, fueled by pure love, just pure love, is icons captured. We talked about this enough today. I have my issues with the actual house itself, but the fan service smacked me in the face, Niko. It's one of those things that first time I walked through it, emotions, pure emotions, just all the icons together.
Right into your veins, right?
Yeah, exactly. And same with my last walkthrough. It's I was a completionist. Of course, I had to see everyone on the throne. And I'm not going to go too much into it because we've talked about it plenty tonight. But yeah, no, again, it's not even necessarily the full quality of the house. It does have great sets. It has great scale. It has beautiful scenes, but it's more about the content it gave me than anything else. And, a lot of times I don't fully buy into that. A lot of times, even anniversary houses, they end up mid tier maybe. But this one hit hard. And if not for having one of the greatest HHN houses of all time in the same year, probably would have been my number one.
Mm-hmm.
So to go to that, this next one, number one, you know what it is now.
Yeah.
Is I have this rule now. I've started to try to follow that. I don't want to fully try to place something in an all-time list because I want to take time to sit on it. You have like Graveyard Games last year, which I was like, oh, potentially number one all time. Now that I've had 2 years to basically sit on it, it's not my number one all time. It's still below Dead Exposure. Definitely top three. I think it was a great house. Still, but it's tough to fully settle it in. I can guarantee you this house is top two all time. I won't say it's number one yet, but it's top two all time. And man, that's Wicked Growth. This house is just Halloween perfection. Everything about it. You walk in, one that the outdoor facade at night is just gorgeous. Walking through that tunnel, it's something that I'll think about a lot. That facade also beautiful, sets the tone, and then sets the tone even better because there's a fucking scare popping out of the fence right there. It's tough to even take in how beautiful
Really well
it is because you're looking at the fence like, oh shit, oh god, here it comes. The story, I love the story behind it. That the Pumpkin Lord, is Halloween and raises Halloween, and the witches are bringing him back, and that never fully confirmed, but this seems like it takes place in Cary or just outside of it. So got more Cary lore going on. The details of every single show scene in this house, perfect. They didn't skimp out anywhere. And then you go to the kitchen. You have like the movement. You got the cat running around and things are moving and spinning, and you got the lattice fence skeleton. Holy shit!
Yeah, that's a great scare.
Oh my god, that is so good. This is a fun little thing. The last night we were in there, they were crying behind their lattice fence. It was very sad. That's the house that I like closed out. We weren't the last people. It's my close. We're in the last several groups to go through. But it was an emotional walkthrough to say the least. The pinball scare, where you have the hanging hand is a phenomenal pinball scare that I would love to see at full capacity. The bridge executed so well, and especially when the pumpkin head actually moved along, which wasn't every time, unfortunately, but when it did it, and then led directly to you getting to that pumpkin head puppet. Holy shit!
It's amazing how scuffed up that bridge got at the end.
I
was like, oh wow. I really noticed it the last time I went through there. I'm like, oh wow, they really need to do a refurbishment on it. But it's end of season.
Yeah,
it's so funny like how much of a beating that bridge took.
All those wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Even the graveyard scene, the way the skeleton like popped out and the lighting behind him. And it's everything about this house was just visually, it's what I wanted. Perfect. So you got the pulsating growth of the pumpkin, in the finale scene, and the Pumpkin Lord looked amazing and could interact with you. Yeah, man, I'm always a sucker for like the super Halloween approach, and doing an original like this and nailing it as perfectly as they did. Yeah, I'm honestly talking about it. So it's a little emotional knowing you'll never see it again. At least in this, I'm sure as popular as it was, that it will get representation at some point in the future, but I will never see this house again. And that's sad to think about that it's over, but yeah, but that's
just be happy that you got to experience something like this.
That's how good that house is to me. Usually when the event ends, it's kind of like I'm sad, obviously, but it's like, all right, look forward to next year. Here we go. I'll miss you guys. Bye. This is one of those ones that was tough to come to terms with the fact that I won't see it again. So
that's fair.
Yeah, it's my number one by far. A legit all timer, top two all time for me. And that doesn't. I was gonna say it doesn't come all the time, but it literally happened in 29 too. Um, so for everyone who's made those random jokes to me about how I'm an HHN hipster and I like to pick, shit people don't like. I literally said Graveyard Games is my favorite at 29 and Wicked Growth is my favorite here. So leave me alone. I like
Yeah.
popular shit too.
Yeah, I was about to say like I'm pretty sure like everyone liked those too, but like it really goes to show. So hats off to Universal Creative for all the work that they did on all of these houses. I would say
Absolutely.
and especially just like the amazing work that they did on Wicked Growth. And it just every like little detail you can really tell like when they really want to do a project, and it felt like there was a lot more passion this year compared to 29. At least
Mhm.
this is just an observation I have of only having 2 years under my belt. It felt like this was a lot more of a passionate year. Ghostbusters seemed kind of like meh, like Ghostbusters would be low on this house here, but it seemed like they really wanted to do fun things with what they got this year. And, it looked like they did as much fun as they could with Beetlejuice. Looks like they had fun doing that. Looks like they really enjoyed what they did at Scary
Mhm.
and at Icons and Bride and Chainsaw and Puppet and Wicked and Case Files. And I think that's a really strong lineup. I think at least 7 houses from this year people will probably continue to talk about like how good it was. And I feel like I'm spoiled this year because the way people talk about Halloween Horror Nights, it feels like this being my second year ever like really experiencing the event, it feels like I'm spoiled that this was my second year. And right now it is definitely better than 29. I can say that. I actually, if I the reason I didn't go again in 29 was because I didn't really feel like spending the money again to go, because I just had the free ticket and I was like, I don't know if I really want to do
Mhm.
that. I actually felt like I definitely got my money's worth, and I went a lot this year. For someone who like kind of has to plan to take a time to go out there just because of like my job and other things like that. It was a fantastic year overall with all the scare zones and the houses and everything. And I feel like we're really spoiled, and I feel like next year's going to be a disappointment.
Hey, yeah, you never know.
You never know.
Let's
You
just
never
hope they
know.
knock it out of the
Exactly.
park.
I hope they
HHN
do.
31, go all Halloween. This is, we've been talking about HHN 31, Halloween 31. Of course, it's the
Oh,
big
yeah,
talk.
that could be.
You got to go. Give me a Wicked Growth follow up. May not necessarily a sequel already. But just pure Halloween original.
And
Do it.
I felt like the houses were different enough. They all kind of stayed within the same genre of each other. But they all had different feels to them, and they all felt like their own original thing where everything here felt distinct. 29 kind of blends together for me,
Hmm.
especially like with Stranger Things, kind of blends together with some of the other
Like
things like
Ghostbusters or
with Ghostbusters. Yeah, Stranger Things and Ghostbusters kind of blend together, which is kind of strange. With that, it kind of blends in with Us, to be honest with you.
oh,
With that, just because like it's kind of all in that same area. Yeti was definitely the jewel of that part of the park from that year. Um, and yeah, I think people will be probably talking, and it could be that we had a year gap that really went through there. At least that's how I feel as a guy who's only been twice, but as someone who's been going a lot, what did you think overall of this year?
I think it was again a strong year. I don't think it was necessarily like an elite level year overall.
Yeah.
That house lineup was super strong. I think maybe scare zones lacked a bit, and that kind of kept it down.
Okay, I can see
But
that.
but overall, yeah, it is a very strong year. I think.
That's
And I got to be honest, like, I was perfectly fine recording this episode, and then we started talking about wicked growth, and I was like, man, I'm gonna miss this a lot. I'm gonna miss this year a lot, and come to the realization that we're a few days out of the event, and we got to wait 10 more months until experiencing another one that we can only hope is as enjoyable or better.
Yeah, and that's what kind of sucks about this is that, like, we're never going to be. I actually am feeling, because, like, yeah, Universal Monsters I think was good, and I only went able through that house 2 times, but I actually feel like I am going to, like, feel nostalgia for Wicked Growth and Puppet Theater and Case Files and Chainsaw and maybe Bride. When it comes to that, I feel like I might miss those, and it'll be like, oh, remember when? Like, it'll being like the old guy on the porch with that.
Well, luckily, we have this podcast to do exactly that.
Yeah, that is true.
Which, hey, listen, now that the season's over, we get to ramp right back up into having more free time and releasing our weekly episodes once again. Which, speaking of, next week we should have our final Hollywood episode of the season, bringing back on Jonathan from the Hotline. So that'll be exciting to talk about and discuss since I got to do that. We'll get a kind of full review from both sides there. And I think we'll probably get his final views on Orlando too, since he made it over, of course. But yeah, no, I'm excited to get ramping up, take a tiny not break from HHN and our podcast as a whole, but not think too much about the future of the event. Give that a couple weeks, and then we'll come back and do our way too early look at HHN31, which is always fun because we're gonna kind of predict and kind of wish list at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, had a lot of fun this year. I wish we got to do more podcasting during the actual season, but it is what it is. We'll try to figure out a better balance next year, podcasting and YouTubing, and there are other issues with computers and shit as well too. So
yeah,
hopefully we have all of that sorted by next year.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be any issues other than we're out till 2 a.m. every day. But man, it was nice to relive all of HHN30 with you. Finally got our rankings out there, and kind of close up what was a really fun year.
Yeah, it was a really fun year. Had a lot of good memories. Enjoyed getting absolutely soaked the first night, like everybody else did.
Well, not me.
No, not you. The plebs had to do that, but that kind of added to the event. So that was fun.
Yeah.
It was really good, and it was kind of glad to see them kind of do like the final show. Like, that's the final show we ever saw in the theater,
Fear Factor, yeah,
and Fear Factor Theater, and the Joe Rogan Memorial Theater. And this possibly could be the last house we ever see at Shrek, but who knows how that's going to turn out.
Yeah. And it's exciting because for the first time ever, HHN365 will have a regular, hopefully, off season to go into here.
Yeah.
Because we've had a rough, not rough, it's been fun start, but other things in the world have been rough since this podcast has started. So here's to getting back to normal and having a regular off season, and not having to wait 2 years for HHN again. So we have a lot of things to look forward to, and we're gonna keep going. So remember that you can always follow us on social media, interact with us, Instagram and Twitter at HHN365. We also have that YouTube channel, HHN365. And again, if you want to be on the show, we'll chat with your voice. Leave us a voicemail at 407-906-3405. And hopefully Mike will be back next week. We've talked about the possibility, one of the few episodes we can get him on with the way things are working. But if not, either way, we will be back, and we will see you in the streets.